Sure.
Call to order the September 28th, 2023 Finance Committee for the City of Franklin. We will take a roll call. Mohammed Noman. Here. Alderwoman Day.
Here.
Alderman Holfer.
Present.
Alderman Craig is present. Joe, Dennis, John are excused. We also have in attendance the Director of Finance, Danielle Brown, and the Director of Administration, Kelly Hirsch. At this time, we have a quorum, and at this time, let's rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, I will open it up for citizen comment period. Any citizen wishing to make a comment about proceedings, please come forward, state your name, your address, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Anyone wishing to make a comment? Seeing none, I will close citizen comment at 4:05 p.m. Moving on to the heart of the matter, a review of the 2024 Mayor's recommended budget related to economic development, public works, and general government operation capital budgets. So we'll begin with sanitary sewer as the first department. Afternoon.
Afternoon.
That's on page 278, your binder.
The floor is yours, sir.
Oh.
Yes, I think how Dennis had did this on Tuesday was just basically discussing your department, how many people are in your department, the description, what you guys do, and then go from there.
So we have a staff of 10 folks that are, I call it utility department, but in reality it's the sewer department and water utility department. So it's everyone's half employee on each utility, and so some days it's all hands on deck for sewer department, some days it's all hands on deck for the water department, but normal operations, they take care of both every day. This is Mike Roberts, he's our utility superintendent, and good to point out these are really not part of the general budget, if you will. They're each enterprise funds, so they're really meant to stand on their own 2 feet as far as being paid by utility rate. So if you're not familiar with the city of Franklin, not the entire city is on utilities. So I forget the exact percentage, but half more or less is on water and a little less than half is on us. Open to any questions. We also have a board of water commissioners that actually is looking over the water department budget. So I believe the only thing you're tasked with tonight is to look over the sanitary sewer department.
So we touched on this in common council earlier. The Ryan Creek Interceptor.
Mm-hmm.
Do not foresee any sort of anything that would kind of bubble up as a, oh wow, we have this kind of thing that became this major expense.
So I don't think so. The Ryan Creek Interceptor was constructed about 2012, I believe, was the date when it was put online. It's meant to capture more than just Franklin. It captures sewer flows from Muskego. The idea is that MMSD is paying us back each year, and so by 2031 it will be theirs, and we'll actually turn the sewer over to them. The past few years, we've been dealing with an issue on, I believe what you're referring to, the odor issue. There's been an odor issue, so we've sunk some money into, we've literally done about everything we can to reduce the odor, and I think we've been successful getting rid of the odor for the nearby residents.
No, I was just making sure that that's going to be, because we just had another outlet for the order thing, but is there, there shouldn't be anything else that would bubble up and make a problem.
No, I don't believe so. We had a contractor hit it a couple years ago that we just got fixed, but yeah, that's on their dime. So no, I don't anticipate any cost associated with that coming up. Sure.
Great.
Yeah, and Mike pointed out that if anything did come up, we do have a sewer rehab budget that we use for fixing things like that.
Okay.
So on other costs, hazardous waste, you requested 95,000. The proposal is 60. What was the reason for the large increase in your ask?
I put that in there. I'll answer that. I put that in there because the cost of everything going up. I use Waste Management. We dump there individually, and things are going up 2-3 times at a crack. And right now, if I remember right, we're right at our spending budget for the year. We're close to it, aren't we? And we still got a quarter to go yet.
I projected at 60. So I mean, you're anticipating it could be a problem?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Now, I'll make a note here that, and it'll come up probably in DPW too, but the cost of everything is just going up like crazy. We were discussing the other day that pre-COVID, a stick of pipe so much, and we're basically paying 4 times the amount for one stick of pipe that we used to. So it's just everything is going up well beyond the inflation.
In their case, they put fees and services. That's how it's going up. You know, we got to adapt to that.
But so the increase, then it sounds like it's strictly the cost of the fee. Are you anticipating additional materials going in? Hard to tell. Thank you. Okay.
So generally, and you can correct me, but generally that's waste that we pull from, when we have to have a water leak and we dig up some things. Sometimes you dig into stuff that you have to get rid of. You can't just put it back in the hole. So we have to take those special places.
Anyone else? Questions, Mr. Morrow?
I just had a comment. One, I know you emailed me after Tuesday's meeting with the Common Council that MMSD is raising their fees for their. Can you explain that a little bit? I know you said it was like 7%.
Yeah, so I forget exactly how we've done this in the past. I don't know if we have, it's not automatic, or we do at least have to go to Common Council to let you know that this is going on. But we do anticipate that the sewer rates will go up this next year. So just as a refresher for the new folks, we don't have our own treatment system. So we don't either way. So we buy water from, right now, Oak Creek. We treat, goes through people's homes, goes back in the sanitary sewer, goes to MMSD. MMSD has escalators in their rates that they charge to us. Some few years ago, we actually saw a rate increase from MMSD, and we didn't pass it on to our citizens because we had some buffer reserves that we built up. But I would imagine we'll probably have to discuss raising our rates this next year. Like I said, MMSD's rates to us is going up by close to 8%, I believe.
Right.
So.
And I just want to say that I did not put an increase in the budget because I didn't know that prior to this being done, so we'll have to talk about
I just found out last
it was,
Thursday.
Yeah, so
So you're gonna make an adjustment?
that's what we need to talk about, yeah. Increasing user
Oh, if
fees
they're
and
gonna raise it, I mean, have to do it. Okay. Anything else?
that was all that
Oh, we should note, we had a employee involved in a very serious accident about 3 weeks ago, And we just found today that the truck was totaled, so replace a truck in kind, it's about $140,000. We probably should discuss how we're going to replace that. Probably be this year's budget, but we have to consider that out of next year's budget too.
Or insurance doesn't cover any portion of that, or?
They called it totaled, but we're not, it's a 2008 vehicle, so we're not anticipating that we'll get a lot of money from it.
The city's insurance is value worth.
A 2008 truck.
How's the employee?
What's that?
How is the employee?
He's still off, so he's doing better than what I would expect him to. I don't know how much I can say here in public.
Oh, yeah, for cracked, broken ribs and skull.
I wish him the best.
Still supervisor.
But to answer your question, he's getting better every.
Okay, anything else?
Mr. Howard, would you like to take over the meeting?
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you, sir. I am going to use myself, I need to use the restroom. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic then. This is engineering.
Yes. Thank you, Mike.
Before we turn it over to Glenn for engineering, I'd like to just clarify something from our conversation on Tuesday's session. It was brought up that we're spending close to $500,000 a year on contracting through engineering, Rupert Milky. I think it's important that it's on the record and noted that the majority of those costs, probably the vast majority, they can probably expand on that, are passed through contractors and developers. In addition to being reimbursed for that, we had 5% to help cover our administrative costs as well. So I didn't want anybody, I happened to listen to the tape again today, and I didn't want anybody to have a misunderstanding that we're not spending that because we talked about ways to save, and I don't know that that's necessarily
obviously not an avenue.
going to be
right.
one. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So, yeah, I can maybe give a further example. So we have 3 firms that do the inspections for us. So when a private developer comes in the door, doing a subdivision or a development, we have 3 firms that we kind of rotate through the crowd. And so Rupert Milky, R.A. Smith, and Grafe, they've got folks that have been inspectors for city projects for many, many years, sometimes decades. So they understand the kinds of things that we're looking for and do a very good job with us. In addition, so some firms like, well, again, Grafe, Rupert Milky, and R.A. Smith, including some other firms, we actually hired to do various projects. Rupert Milky's doing some projects for us in the new industrial park. So they did the design and construction engineering for Hickory Street, and we anticipate that they'll do some more work for us on Elm Road. So those kinds of things. So I don't know the exact number, but it wouldn't surprise me that we have spent probably that much this past year on Rupert Milky.
And a lot of that, yeah, like Ed said, a lot of that gets reimbursed from the developers, or they get charged through the TIDs. So.
As far as the engineering budget, yeah, that's
Yes.
theory that shall get reimbursed. Yeah.
And I did include the revenues plus the 5% in the general fund.
And then the question was just in general discussion. We have new people on the committee. Just briefly, can you tell us how you go about seeking those proposals? I mean, there was some question of how those were did out on an annual basis.
So historically, before I got here, the city pretty much just used those 3 firms for everything. So when I got here, we did try to open up the barn doors a little bit. So we use other firms for various projects when applicable. Again, we still use the big 3 for the really large projects. You know, Rupert Milky's doing the TID work. Grafe is doing the 116th Street trail project. R.A. Smith did the water lane on Ryan Road, that kind of thing. So we do still use them for other issues. But as far as the inspection goes, every 2 years we sit down with those 3 firms and we get a price. We update the prices and we normalize it. So Inspector A, inspector from firm B, and inspector from firm C. We normalize the rates so that everyone's paying the same. So one developer doesn't feel like he's getting punished because he got the most expensive consultant. We make sure that we have the same rates from all three firms. We've talked about opening up, but it goes back to you've got the personnel that really knows our standards and we trust, and they trust us. And again, you got three firms that are all, we can compare their work products, and we talk to each one every year. So we're comfortable with those three. I'm not sure when we first started hiring those firms, but I would not like to open it up anymore. We do have three firms we rotate through, and again, I do use other firms for various other things.
And I'm assuming that if there were issues during the course of the year, or that would come up in your review, and you would say, "Oh, we got a problem with this is late or this is incomplete."
We would, but we have a history of calling them right then, saying, "Hey," because so basically every night, or when they finish the inspection for that day, we get a copy of it emailed, and we had a case where one firm was doing a really great job documenting things, so we took that as an example and showed it to the other firms and said, "Hey, we want you to step up your game, be like this." So when one firm sees ahead and we like it, then we get the other two to do the same thing. So it's a continuous evolving process. It'd be hard to bring a new firm in and train them to how we're doing it.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic then.
So engineering, downstairs we have myself. This is Tyler Beinlich. He's the assistant city engineer. And we have 4 technicians and a couple admin assistants. I wear 3 hats if you didn't know. I'm city engineer, public works director, and utility manager. And so our engineering department provides service to the other departments as needed. We work very closely with the planning department. Tyler, I'm going to say, does all the, not to diminish this, but the routine kinds of projects. So when a development comes in, the process is in place. Tyler's really good about making sure all that happens in an orderly fashion. I kind of do the new projects and that sort of thing. So that's kind of how we split up our duties. But we work on whatever the city asks us to do. So some meetings, I think I'm half the agenda on the council.
I do have a quick question.
Yes.
So we ran into this yesterday when inspection services was with us. So I'm looking at lines 5424 and 5425. It's your memberships, dues, conferences, schools. And there's the requested budget, and then the recommended budget was a little bit lower than that. So when inspections was here, they noted that for their membership and dues, they use that line item to help for any certifications that their staff may need. And is that similar for engineering? Do we help with that portion? Or I just want to make sure that if we're giving you the money, if it's certifications that staff needs to be able to do their job.
Not so much certifications, it's more or less the conferences and trainings. So I was telling somebody today, unlike police and fire that go to a police or a fireman convention, we wear so many hats and we're involved in so many different issues. So, for example, this year I went to AWWA, American Water Works over in Madison. Then the other years I go to the National Public Works Association. So I try not to do everything every year, but there's just so many things that we're involved with: water, sewer, road, street. I'm involved in transportation stuff. We do have employees that do training for surveying, so we review CSMs, that sort of thing. So I want to make sure that our employees are able to stay constant on that. In addition to the AutoCAD training, some of those other kinds of training. There's just a lot of different kinds of training, but I guess the big answer is the reason why ours is maybe a little bit bigger than most is because we're just involved in so many different areas. We have so many different kind of conferences that we need to stay current on current technologies, and it's a good chance to, again, meet with the consultants to talk about projects that are coming up or figure out how we could do things and brainstorm and that sort of thing. They are really helpful.
So you had in your requested budget a little bit higher for both of those line items than the year before, and the budget kept it flat. Are you okay with it being flat?
Take what I can get.
And we're not in the lurch that someone's gonna be missing
Yeah.
out on something, they need to be able to.
Yeah, I'll just have to hedge it around.
Thank you.
I've got one if nobody else does. I have a question if nobody else does. On the software maintenance, so your request was 15.7 and it was pared down to 13.5. Looks like you need the 5th license for the CAD at 10,000, is that correct?
So, there's a couple, yeah, I don't recall those offhand. So we are trying to increase our CAD licenses, but probably another important is software called Bluebeam. So when people submit plans, we can review them on screen and stuff, and it's always a constant license. I mean, technicians are, hey, can you get out of the software so I can get into it, kinds of things. We're trying to increase that. So it would be nice to bump that back up, but again, I'll take what I can get.
So if you get what's the mayor is suggesting, what'll your priority be then?
Probably stay with current what I have. So 5257. I'll have to. Well, obviously, have to stay within our budget.
Did that Trimble software updates, is that higher than it's been previously? Is that, or is that brand new?
Okay, so yeah, so the CAD licenses, the Bluebeam software, and the Trimble software, that may be a little bit higher than it has been in the past. So we do a lot of survey needs. Every time somebody wants a driveway culvert or something, we're always sending. I think our surveys probably use at least 4 days every week, if not 5 days. This is a software that's just needed, so that's a definite that we would have to do. The CADs would be preferred, and probably the Bluebeam. I'm sorry, Bluebeam was preferred. CAD's probably what I would cut back on if I had.
Most of your increases personnel costs.
Yeah, personnel costs are going up. I believe that's where the majority of it. I didn't look at it that way, but probably right. Looking at 3% increase. No new employees from what we have.
Pretty big jump with that health and
Yeah. Any questions? Capital part of it, by the way?
Sure.
Okay. 289.
Do you have readers for everyone?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Engineering is about 3/4 of the way down.
Page 290.
289.
289.
I think 290 is where all the engineering.
290, I think.
Oh, I
is
see
the-
that. Okay.
So, I see the CAD piece on there.
So the truck cap storage, we have a pickup that, again, we carry survey equipment in it. Nice to be able to keep that enclosed. Those are zeroed. The engineering vehicle, I believe it's I think it's a 2003 Suburban, and if you're up for an adventure, I'll take you for a ride in it, but I don't. It really needs to be replaced. The trail sections that you see there, those have been projects that we've been talking about for a few years, and probably depends on the park impact fees, whether that needs to be spent or not. We can pick and choose which ones may or may not happen. There are some trails that are happening as part of the DOT projects. So the 116th Street will happen next year. Actually, going to bid it out this year, and it will construction will happen next year after August 1st. St. Martin's a tour trail that will happen in conjunction with the DOT project, but they are still purchasing land, so we're going to be spending some money next year on that.
And those were approved in 23, so
Correct. Having trouble reading this fine print, but
Yeah.
I know.
various trail projects that may or may not be able to happen. Again, probably a lot of it will depend on the park impact fee discussions.
What I can say for engineering that is included in the mayor's budget is the wide format plotter, street lighting,
We do have a wide plotter that's 5, maybe going on 6 years old. Doesn't sound that old, but it's the point where no one will come out and maintain it anymore, or at least promise that they can fix it. So this plotter's used by us on a daily basis. It's used by inspection, and then we make plots for various other departments as maps.
Highway 36 from Highway 100 to Rawson. That is in here with some use of park impact fees.
That's part of the DOT project that'll happen next year on Loon. We're going to put a sidewalk, a wide sidewalk, if you will, on this side of the road.
And then streets. Local street improvement program and the local street pavement.
Yes. This is one thing Tyler does. Tyler, you want to tell them a little bit about the streets doing next year?
So I think our request was 3 million, but it's gonna be 2.2, which is good. I mean, we had 1.5 this year. We do about, depending on budget, 1.5 to 2.5 miles of the 180 miles throughout the city that the city staff owns and maintains. So with the added budget, we'll be able to do more, which is good. So one thing to note is with the 180 miles that we have, with the 2023 and years prior budgets, we were only able to really touch about 1% of that each year. So, if we were to keep on that cycle, roads that got paved today wouldn't get touched again for close to 100 years. So, the added increase is going to go a long way this year, but yeah, I mean, our requests are probably going to keep coming in at the 3+ every year.
If you look on page 336, there's a memo that Tyler put together. So every other year, I believe we're due for this year, we actually have our staff look at every segment of every road in the city. And we rank them from 1 to 10. So 10 is a perfect score. 1 is a really, really bad score. So we try to prioritize based on numbers, and we're hitting 3s and 4s, typically what we do. We started taking some of our monies and putting it towards preventative maintenance. So after about 2 to 3 years, we'll actually coat it with seal coat, if you will, that keeps it the asphalt from the surface from deteriorating too quickly. So we're trying to add life into our old roads. Actually, we're trying to add life into our new roads, so it'll be that much longer before we really have to do an expensive. And this software that Tyler used as part of his memo, it tells us keep our ratings at the same, how much would we have to spend. So historically, we've come up with a number, and historically, we've got roughly half of that. So when I started here, I want to say it was 30 to 40 years. And now we're, like I said, Tyler's approaching 100 years. So every year that we only fund half of what we really need to stay current, we lose that much more ground.
Kicking the can down the road there.
We are. Someone's got to pay for it someday.
Given that every department, municipality, we're all just kind of like banding.
Yeah. Say the most is coming.
I got a couple of questions about when you do the seal coating. Are you doing spray coats or are you doing a squeegee application?
We've done both, but Tyler.
Yeah, more recently, it's just spray on.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's similar to what you might do, maybe a little bit higher quality than what like companies might do in parking lots or you might do in your driveway, but it's a little bit more heavy duty. But it's a really thin layer that just gets.
We tried to kind of chip and seal on Forest Hill a couple of years ago and just got so many complaints about it. Quite honestly, I think it was a good job, but we just had so many complaints. We're going to try to maybe just do the box seal.
Is it a tar-based or an AC sort of mix?
So the one we've been using is called GSB 88. So it's a gilsonite-based sealer, so it's a little bit more eco-friendly.
Okay. Yeah.
So it provides a lot of the same things. Yeah, we don't put anything down with any coal tar or anything. That's actually in our municipal code, not to use like that. But yeah, we're trying to do a little bit more on the eco-friendly side too. So.
And anything with any sort of rubberized additives to kind of extend the life of it all, or no?
There, I don't know the full chemical breakdown of it, I guess, but so, it goes on, it seals it, but it also kind of rejuvenates, so it adds some of the oils back into the pavement to keep it from oxidating too much. So there is a lot of additives there, but I
I'm just curious.
Sure.
Used to do that every summer from sophomore year of high school.
Sure.
So,
Ladies and gentlemen, that's why Tyler's here. I don't think I could have answered that. Thanks.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Capital part of this? Do you want to talk about capital part of the sewer? Yeah. Okay. Do that.
I lost Mike, but I can try to answer. I do know we're doing a project next year. We've got a force main going up Forest Home that, quite honestly, we can't figure out how to inspect it, but it's of the age where we're going to start breaking loose. It's the concrete force main pipe. So we talked about how to tackle that, possibly maybe do some relining on that next year.
Concrete what? I'm sorry.
It's a concrete pipe.
Oh.
It's used as a force main. So you have basically a concrete pipe under pressure that's 30 to 40 years old. It hasn't broke through yet, but we expect it'll happen probably on a nice cold February morning or something like that. So we'd like to make sure and I've asked several companies on, again, these conferences I go to, trying to find somebody that can try to inspect the pipe. And really the only way to inspect it is they can tell you if it's leaking or not. Well, we don't think it's leaking, otherwise we'd be seeing sewage coming up through the people's yards. So, but we don't know how close we are. There could be some pieces of pipe that are very thin. We do know that there's a lot of hydrogen sulfide, and hydrogen sulfide is very aggressive on concrete. So the thought is we should start just doing a rehab project on it. Assume that some of it's bad, we're going to reline it, and we may start doing that project next year, and that'll probably be a several-year project.
The only other sewer item that I see on here other than miscellaneous projects is the PPII, if you
Sure. So this is a project that actually won't cost us a lot of money. If done right, shouldn't cost us any money. MMSD collects funds from us, and then they put them back in a pot they call PPII. It stands for private property inflow and infiltration. And so what this is we're trying to make sure that clean water doesn't get in the sanitary sewer, because when that happens, it can fill up the sewer. It all becomes dirty water and all has to be treated. So if they can do something to keep clean water, like people's sump pumps, out of the sanitary sewer system, better for everything. So they dedicate a certain pot of money for that, and there is a certain amount that's earmarked for the city of Franklin should we decide to use it. And we've been working on some projects. We started this year. We talked to several District 1 and District 2 neighborhoods, looking at some places that had some high inflow and infiltration issues, and District 3. The mobile home park has some leaky sewers, we know, and we're trying to fix those. There's some subdivisions we were talking to where trying to give people a place to discharge their sump pumps somewhere other than sanitary sewers. So we're providing lines. We go out and actually tie in the storm sewer. Bottom line is we're using that money, and it's not really costing the city anything. If we can get 100% participation on a stretch, then it won't cost the city anything. If we were to do a section where we only do half, then it would cost the city half. So our goal is to only find the sections that we can get 100% participation for. And so we're again, there's a big fund there, but there should be an offsetting income to help pay for that. So that'll come through MMS.
Okay. Anything else?
I just have one more question, sorry, regarding engineering. That vehicle, the Suburban vehicle, is that the 2003 vehicle, or is that?
I believe it is.
Okay, then I just want to make everybody aware that that vehicle should have been 2017. Still has it.
We try to make it last as long as we can. We're getting to the end of its life.
Okay, let's move on to the highway and parks then.
Thanks, Tyler.
That's on page 199.
So I'd like to introduce Rich Kafsky. He's our Assistant Director of Public Works. Kevin Cleaver's our Director of Public Works. I'm sorry, our Superintendent of Public Works. I'm the Director. Kevin's not supposed to be here, just so you know. He's here as a citizen. He's actually on some leave. He's not supposed to be here. Shame on you. But I couldn't keep him away.
Dedication.
Right. Good to see you.
He's here as a citizen.
Great.
Okay, questions?
What page you want to start on?
199, start the department narrative. And then
Just a comment, you did LED lights in the library parking lot?
Yes.
Yeah,
Looks great.
And we're not finished with them yet, but we're waiting for the poll.
Yeah, it looks very good.
The polls are supposed to be in January. So.
Poles and everything else, and especially your water meters. I know we're not talking about water, but it's just amazing the lag time to get stuff. We weren't able to replace all our water meters this year, supply chain issues. DPW sees that with when they order a truck. Used to, you order a truck, and a few months later you take delivery and put all the bells and whistles on it that need to make it work. Now you put your name in a hat, and hopefully in 3 years you can purchase it.
you know roughly how far we are with the replacement of the meters? Just out of curiosity.
Replacement of what?
The
Meters?
replacement of the meters.
I don't know the exact number, but I think we're down about 120 or 130 meters when we finish the year. We just had a discussion with Badger Meter, and they're going to get us our meters, but they're hoping in, I believe, February we can take a look. So we wrote a letter to PSC to explain what's going on.
Can you talk a little bit about the huge increase in vehicle support? It was 190 last year and it's 50 this year.
I would tell you that that's somewhat of an indication because we're not able to replace our vehicles. A little history, last year we had all the normal typical vehicles we'd like to replace and we got 0. The reason why we basically traded those for a storage building that we're building behind. We're trying to keep vehicles, covered and so forth. So we understand that. So, but however, doing that, we had some vehicles requested this year, and I believe we're proposed 1. It's when you have increased vehicles, they're getting older and older, and especially talk about some of the transmission and motor issues we've been having with big trucks.
Yes, we have a couple of, actually a few trucks, 3 of them that have the max force motor in it. Well, International had problems with them, not standing behind them. So a lot of our money is going for replacement motors, emission issues with the bucket truck. And it's just an ongoing thing, and International is not taking any responsibility. We have to fork over the money for replacements or fixing it. Replacing injectors, that all the time.
They typically go down on a Saturday during snow event.
Of course.
Murphy's Law.
So I take it we're not buying any new ones of those anymore.
No, definitely not. I think most of the trucking people went to Cummings, which is good for us.
So you're gonna be able to live with the lower amount?
That's going to be a tough one. Obviously, with not getting the trucks, definitely more replacement on even the other trucks. They're getting used more. We're actually using them more, just undercutting and stuff, so we're trucks more that way. Be more wear and tear on a truck. I think this year, we're projected for 190. I think we're going to go above that. I think we're going to go above that this year.
Get the neighborhood kids out.
We do have an Adopt a Street now program. I haven't moved that to Adopt a Street to plow it and keep it clean.
Stake to claim in front of my house today with the Adopt a Street.
What's that?
I said, you just staked a claim in front of my house today with the Adopt a Street program.
Oh, yeah, we're getting some signs up for the high school. Honor Society.
So similar question on equipment replacement. This is the 5382 line. This is for replacement of attachments for skid steers, loaders, and excavators. When you're saying replacement, is what we have right now just completely kaput and we need a replacement, or can we Band-Aid it through for?
That's the account we would use for when attachments become
Okay.
non-repairable
Okay.
or become unsafe.
Okay, do we have some right now that are like in need of replacement right now? Or is this just sort of the fail-safe money to have on hand in case over the course of the year something does happen?
When it happens, not if it happens.
Okay. And that isn't accounted for in any of the other vehicle maintenance?
No.
This is separate account, okay.
Keep our welder pretty busy, but times when you just can't weld them anymore.
The accounts of the highest concern are, if I can say, are going to be the fuel, the vehicle support, and the salt, and the attachment replacement. Those are the high concerns.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the salt. So is what we have in here that you're asking for, is that the amount that we typically ask for every year, or is it a little bit higher, a little bit lower?
I asked for a little bit more.
A little bit more.
Because in 23, the current year, there was just about a 7%
Gone
increase.
over.
And my rep said that count on it again next year. So dependent on the winter, kind of dictates what we're going to order the following year. So if we have an average winter, we could be looking at, being short here. That's why I put.
And then, as far as the material that we buy, is there like a gradient of, here's like the best, type of material we can put down versus this is cheaper, but it's not the greatest? Where are we in what we?
We use the cheapest.
Okay.
So I will also say that we do a couple extra things with our salt too. So we have modified salt, so we get it and we modify it with beet juice, we have a product, and so that actually helps us use less salt. What happens is when you can throw the salt down, it actually sticks to the pavement instead of just hitting the bounce and bouncing everywhere, and sometimes it goes off in everybody's ditches. The other thing we do with it is we have a called brine solution. We actually take salt and we add it water, so that actually saves us more than just salt because we can actually pre-treat our streets during normal time. We don't have to pay overtime. If we know a storm is coming, we can you may see the lines on the streets, and that can actually sometimes even prevent us from having to go out that night, or at least waiting before we have to really go out and get it. Makes it come up easy. I understand.
There was a year, didn't we buy extra salt, or we bought at the end of the year or something?
So typically what we do is, if you recall, you're probably thinking of a memo that I typically put together every year when we buy salt. We like to have on hand, or at least the ability to buy 2 times a normal amount, what we would typically use in an average year. And the reason why, some years ago, before I got here, we had a lot of extra salt for whatever reason stored, and it was a very heavy winter, and pretty much every municipality was basically begging for salt, and they were paying sky-high prices for salt. So we found that if we can buy it with a normal bid process and keep it on hand, and that's why we have our salt storage shed, then should we have a really bad winter, we don't have to go out and pay highway robbery prices for salt. We can just use normal price salt. So it actually saves us quite a bit of money that way.
Okay. About the capital. 288.
So as you can see, there's quite a few items requested for the work. I don't know if the mayor wants to speak on capital at all, especially highway. The intention was here.
Sure. So the intention across the board was, and I know we had talked at some length with this, was to look at the absolute need. And I understand from every department head, I get it. I understand there's everyone's got needs. We've got what we're looking at is trying to keep this budget as flat as we can, still keep things working, and not have a negative impact or a tax increase for the citizens. It's a heck of a balance. And then, so what we're trying to do here is look at your list, what you thought was your most highest demand priority, and work with that accordingly. And I'll leave it with that, Madam Director.
So I know what was included in the mayor's recommended budget was a front end loader, a 1-ton dump truck, street lighting, and then Kayla's playground flooring. Some PC roof. So if anyone has any questions, discuss that.
We did make a request for some additional staffing at DPW. Obviously not going to happen this year, but I would like the group to think seriously about adding DPW staff in the future. We have 16 snow routes. We're running out of many snowstorms. Basically, have our guys driving at the maximum, and we have to send them home when everything's not quite done. The summertime, and there's just we just keep adding parks. We're adding miles of street. We're adding, and our DPW personnel has stayed stable for decades, really several decades. And the city's grown quite a bit, and it's older people are, hey, we'd like you to go do this, go do that. And it's really tough. I realize everyone, their front yard is their priority, but it's really tough to try to prioritize on our end. What do we get done today? And unfortunately, sometimes the things that fall through the cracks are like crack sealing and some of those kinds of issues that really doesn't get the immediate attention. But we just had a discussion about our roads. We need to do everything we can to keep those roads active, but they don't get the squeaky wheels like mowing the parks kind of stuff. So trying to keep everybody happy all the time is we've given up trying to do that, but it's still there's a lot of squeaky wheels out there that we'd really like to see more work done. So we realize it's not happening this year, but we really would like to. Every chance I get, I'm going to try to tell that message. We need some more DPW folks and equipment so that they can do their jobs, get more work done.
And we realize that. I mean, it's not like we're like, wow, really? Tell us more. I mean, it's obviously what we talked about this and what our financial constraints are. And is it something that we look to raise taxes with? Is it something we go to a referendum with for other departments? And you're right, this year was the year that we really focused on our planning department and the issues down there and how to get that back on track, so to speak, and get it moving, to get things going. You make an excellent point that the city has grown since your last increases were added. I'd like to know when that was. I think you said you were up to what, and I apologize for coming late, but it's 181 miles of city streets right now.
Somewhere around there.
And growing. And we've got at least 3 to 4 subdivisions coming up, a few more large manufacturing, other growth areas that are going to add more streets and more pressure on you. And I believe that's where the normal Franklin citizen taxpayer needs to get that education on how we've really grown as a city, not just by residential population, but by what that equates to with streets and new construction. So new construction next year, in 2024, we're anticipating quite a large increase. So hopefully that'll assist with that. I yield.
Yeah, I had 2 things. One, I would like, and I haven't seen it in a while, but I'd like to have this ongoing maintenance issue considered for any type of future donations of land to the city. I think might be important to kind of consider that. Are we even able to maintain what we have right now? 2, I wanted to say a big thank you to Glenn, who went out of his way and offered to assist the planning department and myself with DNR and FEMA letters.
Thank you.
Care of that, so it's huge. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So they're doing their part too and going above and beyond and helping out where they can.
I just have a quick question about staffing levels. So Do you have open positions right now, or are you, the 23.35, are you at full right now?
At the moment.
At the moment, okay. And then how many, would you say when you have open positions, do you typically try to fill them with folks that can do multiple things so you can kind of rotate around, or is it more or less, we have, we need somebody that, because you have light equipment and heavy equipment operator, do we hire someone who can do both things so that we can cross-train or better move people around if we need to, or is that not typically how we hire? Or we just take what we get?
We take what we get, and it, unfortunately, market.
Well, I won't put that on the record, but let me say it this way: CDL license is very valuable, right? So you don't know, the federals changed the rules on what takes a CDL license starting February of last year. So quite honestly, any one of our guys could probably go down the street, and hop on with any contractor, make close to $10 more an hour, and just sit in the truck all day. And we ask our guys to not only have CDL license, but they're busy. They're busy every day. They have to get out and do manual work, and they're doing a whole variety of things. Anywhere from emptying trash at whatever festival we're having, to doing stuff in the road, to doing things in the park, and just everywhere, anywhere, every day something different. And they're busy all day long. They don't barely have time to sit down and take a lunch, really. So when you compare that with what they could do, just sit in the truck all day and work and make a lot of overtime, because all those contractors are really busy. We're really blessed to have the guys that we do. But when we have an open position, we go through a lot of resumes, and it's really not a lot to look at. So it's rare when we do find someone that typically it's the guy who is tired of working 20 hours of overtime a week, or wants to stay home with the family kind of thing, wants to have more stable. So those are the kinds of things we can offer, even though our pay is less. Had a conversation with another municipality next door today, and talked about how they're getting ready to have a bunch of folks retire, and how do you keep, basically they're going to look for folks in our department and other departments to try to scavenge off of. So one municipality, when you have a lot of openings, and they up the rates just enough to try to coax folks from one municipality to another, and it's really tough to keep it from a monetary.
And I would surmise, because our land mass is so much bigger than our neighboring municipalities, that even if we have, similar numbers, it's still not similar in scope. So doing a comparison apples to apples to our other neighboring communities is probably not beneficial, because we have so much land mass we have to cover.
I've always said I'm very jealous of the police and fire chiefs. They can come into a meeting like this. They can pull up a chart, and they can say, well, here's how we rank in Milwaukee County, or here's nationally how the number of calls or number of whatever they met their metrics. They can say we're 3 officers short, or whatever. Problem with DPW is, unlike a police officer here and a police officer in Phoenix, Arizona, they pretty much do the same job every day. Maybe different climate, but it's the same job. DPW here is different than DPW in Greendale and Oak Creek and Muskego and Milwaukee. We all do different things. Some people don't take care of parks like we do. Some people actually pick up the trash, and we don't. It's just, you can't compare apples to oranges, and just a different job here than it is a different job somewhere else. So it's really difficult to explain, other than the fact, we've grown so much since we last increased somebody. It's really kind of hard to find a metrics on how to explain how short we are.
I just want to say, I didn't mean nothing bad by what I said. What I meant was, we have 3 categories: police, lights, and labor. Sometimes, finding a heavy, in the private sector, a heavy would not really that goal. So when we have an opening, sometimes we have to adjust, step down to a light or labor. That's when I'm just can't, because you just can't find that type of person.
Do you have wiggle room on your staff now to kind of move people around, that if, say, you had an opening for the we needed a heavy equipment operator, but we weren't finding one, but there were lots of light, do we have internally that we could move somebody or get somebody extra training or something to move them so we can
I would say
like
we always,
creatively backfill like that maybe?
I would say we always give our internal staff first opportunity at a new job.
If they're
I was curious, how much of a factor does something like a licensing scale impact our applicants? Do we support them coming in without one if they are interested in able to get a license?
We've had a discussion. We've had many discussions concerning that. So I mentioned it's tougher to get a CDL license. It's almost like you're taking an officer and sending them to police academy. So it's not quite as intense as that, but in essence, when I checked on it, you could send a person to CDL license it's like 4 weeks full time or 8 weeks half time in the evenings. So basically, you'd be hiring that person, send them off to get their CDL license, and you lose them. You're paying them because otherwise they really can't drive our equipment either. So they need that license to drive the big trucks. Wow. So a few years ago, we did do something different with our personnel. We had up to 6 summer staff that we had that we would, quite honestly, we found that it was more effort to babysit than to actually get work done. So we traded all 6 of those seasonal help in for one laborer. So we have one full-time person who makes $21 an hour thereabouts, instead of having 6 kids every summer making $14 an hour. So the laborer does not have a CDL license, and the hope is he worked out and maybe he might want to move up kind of thing. But we would have to send them off to get their CDL license. Very nice of you to hire that up front. So. And then plowing snow, let me say it this way, just you haven't heard my spiel on this, but when I got here, so we have 20 plow drivers, if you will. And when I got here, I did an analysis of all the plow drivers we had. The median, so the person in the middle, the median driver was like 19 years. They'd been here quite a while. And I've been told that it takes 3 years to feel comfortable plowing snow and 5 years of plowing snow to get good at it. So we had a median person at 19 years, and the youngest guy was like close to 4 years old. It was Dale when I got here. Having said that, I haven't run the numbers again, but I think the median's more like 3.5. And it's tough because we just had a lot of retirement. And again, the people are making more money in the private sector right now. It's just we've got a lot of, inexperienced drivers that are trying to plow the snow. And again, the routes are getting longer, and add up all those other things we just talked about. It's a difficult job.
You've been out as an observer with some of these
A few times.
inexperienced drivers, so that's pulling you away from other duties as well.
Well, so a good point. So when we do have a brand new driver, Rich and probably Dale, I would imagine, has to, if you will, play shotgun. They sit in the seat with them and make sure that they're know what they're doing, because it's different than a pickup truck plowing a parking lot. It's got the side wing and some other issues. And after riding, I can tell you I couldn't jump into it right away. That's for sure.
Okay, anything else? Let's move on to the street lighting then. 221, 223.
So just to give you a little background, the city does not own all the street lights that you see around the city. So the city's own street lights are things like in the business park, up and down 27th Street, up and down Rawson Street, those kinds of things in Ryan Road, where they're all in a row and all look the same and so forth. Most of the street lights you see, they're on the corner of intersections and subdivisions. Those are actually owned by We Energies, but we pay a monthly fee for them. So every time a subdivision goes in, we have the developer pay to put the light up, and then we take on the monthly payments. So every time a subdivision goes in, those monthly, it's only $20-30 a month, but they all add up. And we are working to change our lights over to LED. We actually applied for a grant, so we're hoping that we can make a bigger fight into getting all of our lights transferred over from a HPS, high pressure sodium system, to a LED system.
Can you explain a little bit what the difference between the street lighting that's in your operational budget versus the street lighting that's in the capital budget is?
One's replaced, right?
Street lighting in the operating budget is for maintenance of the current system.
Okay.
Capital is for replacement
Oh,
of major loss, and we're trying to upgrade that to an LED.
okay.
So that's what the capital part is, a complete head and arm replacement.
Got it, okay.
We do tend to have our street lights fall down at like 2 o'clock on Saturday morning. For some reason. Costs money every time that happens, especially when you can't prove it.
Right.
And those type of things come out of the operating part of it.
Okay, any
The
questions?
most helpful citizen.
Question on the street lighting then? Solid waste. 59.
When do parks, since they're here?
Oh, yeah, it's all kind of included, the highway and the parks.
All right, we can go solid waste. I have a lot to add. Solid waste.
Tell us a history, Glenn. Only got 2 more hours. Go ahead.
So I guess I will say that John's is our contractor.
Excellent.
I understand before John's, our public works meetings we had a standing, every meeting people would be in with all the complaints about our trash pickup, and so since John's took that over, we still hear some complaints, but John's is usually on it, and they tend to take care of it. So I believe it was 2 years ago we went to a more frequent recycling. People seem to like that. We started doing some shredding events that we pay for out of this fund. We did it last time. We had people lined up. We had to order more trucks and so forth. This year, maybe we just took care of it last year, so it wasn't near as busy. We actually may be able to downsize a little bit next year. Things went well, ran smoothly. I don't know if Danielle has finished her evaluation, if we look like we need to raise rates next year a little bit.
Yeah, it's gonna be $20 increase.
One of the things I like to add about John's coming in is Nate Austin, who comes up here as part of the ownership group. I believe every alder, I know I have his cell, if there are any issues, to call him directly, and he makes sure that somebody gets out to this right away. And I mean, he's extremely responsive. I get no complaints. Garbage cans aren't knocked over; they're put back up. We were instrumental by making that change to allow them to have the automated arm. That was a big deal for them because that other pick up and bust your back stuff has kind of gone to the wayside. They can't get people either. So we've made a commitment to him. He's made a commitment in their company to us, and I think that is they are really put forth an excellent service to the citizens.
And John's is an example of what the whole CDL issues. They really have a struggle keeping their CDL drivers too, like us. So a little sympathetic sometimes when drivers aren't best or the most trained. They're still learning on that learning curve too.
I'm the one. I just have a question. I'm new to this, but just as the way you've the solid waste, you have the contractors like for the snow plowing and all. I mean, is that like not an economical thing, or is that completely a different?
So we've talked about that. I guess the thought is, one, it's very tough to find a contractor that's available anytime we want them. Right now we have 16 to 20 trucks for every snowfall. Not too many people have those people sitting around just to be able to come to Franklin, may or may not want them. So our drivers, they have the same route every time. and that helps pick up its efficiencies. So we, unlike Milwaukee, where you call in and every time you could have a different route, we have our guys who have the same route. So our guys get to know their part of the city. We looked a little bit into it. It wasn't even close to being cost effective, but we didn't look too hard at it. We have thought about it.
Okay. Any other questions on solid waste? Move on to city attorney. Or did we want to get back to parks?
Do parks.
Yeah, was it, yep.
Parks.
Parks.
The park should be 218. Yep, 218.
Okay. Fire away.
I think everyone's fairly familiar with our parks, but we've been adding infrastructure. We just added the pavilion at Pleasant View, and this past year we opened it up for rentals. We just finished a pickleball court. We were looking at trying to convert the tennis courts across the street to pickleball courts. That seems to be the big thing right now is pickleball. We're adding pathways and trails to help buy down the park impact fee issues. Purchased the Southwest Park that we haven't developed yet. We are starting to develop a what I call Water Tower Park on Lovers Lane. We're planning to put a water tower out front, and we'll have a form of passive park in the back. So again, the parks generate most of the, I want to say, squeaky wheels, complaints, issues, comments, concerns. Keeps us busy most of the year. A lot of mowing. Probably 2 years away from asking for call it basically a mowing Roomba. So they're basically these $20,000 machines that technology's getting there where via satellite you can drop it off in the morning, they'll mow the park and that kind of stuff. So I'm still looking that direction, but that's not an issue. But that is coming someday. Anything else?
Parks, only increase they asked. They were all minor. The largest one was the parks maintenance, and it's ongoing. Trying to keep up with vandalism.
We do get a lot of vandalism in parks.
Apologize, this isn't directly related to you guys, but I was thinking about, we had talked at one time in council about having signage posted that you have to have a permit, etc. So the police had authority to ticket or hold people accountable. I was wondering if that ever got done, but then part of that, Emory comes back that they were going to get back to us with rules to look at, and it's another one of those things that.
Still Parks Commission.
So we haven't heard anything from.
Yeah,
So
we haven't
last-
met in a few months, and right now I don't know when we're going to meet again. We've got
We-
nothing.
Parks has not met since we had that discussion.
Yeah.
So it's been on the agenda. We just
Yeah,
haven't had
it's there.
meeting.
A question?
I have an update for Ed. Has asked this question before about the industrial roofing services. They have not been able to handle repairs as of current because the gutters that were supposed to have been replaced last year have not been replaced. To jump ahead and not replace those and do the mason work and the painting, and then potentially do the gutters would just and not the right process. It would clearly ruin the progress that they would make.
Do a timeline on it?
I have received new proposals that I was going to try to bring to council, but I haven't had a chance to actually review them.
So we just keep rolling that
Right.
those dollars forward.
Not sure I was aware of the gutters.
Yeah, it's so we had asked about where everything was, and and that's what I was told, is they're working on finishing up the library and the police, their proposals for them, and the Ken Wendell, even though it had been approved, is kind of just sitting there because of this hitch in the plans with the gutter replacement that should have occurred prior.
Okay.
So we're at the stage where we need the roof and gutters. Everything else.
Well, for sure, we need to do something about the gutters. I didn't see him mention the roof, but potentially,
It was
because we
paint
can't,
wall.
we can't move forward with doing any of the, it's called pin tucking,
Point tuck.
That's
tuck
all.
point.
That's
Yeah.
done.
Okay, but the exterior work that was supposed to take place without the gutters being placed, it's not gonna, it'll be a useless
Okay.
repair.
Who did it point out?
Oh,
Was it something that was put out to bid, or we have a local contractor that we use for
it was 7 years.
sidebar? I'll find out, because if that's somebody that's one of these approved bidders, that's fine.
That part's done. We're up to the roof and
Okay. On to the city attorney.
Thank you, sirs. Ladies.
Thank you.
Ladies go first.
Kevin, you're moving around great.
Okay. 149 to 150.
$149, $150.
The big change I saw was the special attorney service line.
That was something that we had put in based on
Some of the known
yes,
things that were,
2020.
and that's a rough estimate.
Correct.
Maybe
Yeah, that was just
hoping that we overshot.
very much so,
Okay.
but wanted to put an appropriation in there. So
Yep,
this is
good.
that line had nothing to do with.
Okay, good. That answered
attorney.
questions I had about those matters. So
Anybody else? My question would be the increase in the department requested, but the number of hours of service had gone down almost 1,000, well, 900. Are you just increasing charges, or?
I know nothing about hours going down 900. The short version, and the last couple of years have been more hours than ever. This year I may have set the record. Been doing this May 4th, 1990. Hourly rates have not changed. Administrator back in the 90s jumped it up from $75 an hour to $90 an hour, somewhere mid-1990. I have never asked for an increase. Look around the state of Wisconsin, you will not find that elsewhere. In this tri-county area, I know there's a firm representing almost 40 municipalities. They're now at $2.15 an hour. Through the decades, they've looked for a merger, and I said, I'm not changing the hourly rates because privileged to serve by the people for the people. And of the last couple of years, I'm aware of in this area municipalities that are now up to $305 an hour for the attorney and one at $345 an hour. So that has never changed. Essentially, I've never changed the budget to be submitted. Might have been a change around 2008 with regard to the legal secretary, but the firm has myself and 3 assistant city attorneys. Charges for the assistant city attorneys are at $60 an hour, except for municipal court, night court services, or day court services. Those are at $85 an hour. And none of that's ever changed, never asked for an increase. Only request whenever I submit the budget annually is other departments, etc., receive some CPI increase, would appreciate that occurring. In terms of 900 hours, I think I was over $40-some thousand uncompensated over budget last year and the year before. I know this year, through the first 9 months of invoicing, we're at over $48,000 uncompensated over budget. Never asked for a budget amendment through decades and haven't had time to go back and look, but I know that uncompensated over budget for the law firm for the City of Franklin services through the decades is now approaching $700,000. So, and that $180,000, that's not part of what I said.
That answers that, huh?
By the people for the people.
Okay. Any other questions?
Go Packers.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, municipal court, 125 and 126.
Oh, beat me for that. We do the municipal.
Yeah,
court.
probably because
Yeah, we
it's not
probably do.
here and, Florida. I mean, I don't know. I think it's just,
Yeah, there was
it's
no change
stayed flat.
except,
No change, correct?
no.
Yeah, that's no change. Guess we
The only thing is the capital, they had requested some
Wallpaper, removal,
yeah, they
wall
wanted
painted cartoons,
basically
but-
update the offices over for the ladies in the court, carpeting, cubicles and workstations,
Get rid of the
painting.
asbestos.
That's in the city attorney budget?
No,
this
that's
is just the
municipal
court.
court.
Court,
Yeah,
municipal
yeah,
court budget.
sorry, yeah.
Okay, thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Thank you.
Go Pack, go. Okay, economic development. 244, 247.
Hi, John, how are you?
I did.
Well, I see one big increase is the 5219, other professional. About that for
Sure. Want an introduction first, or you want to just dive
well,
in?
sure, Mr. Watson.
The Economic Development Department's tasked with retaining and expanding existing businesses, helping recruit new businesses, and supporting the economic development efforts of the mayor, common council, and administration. It includes TIF establishment and administration,
recruiting and assisting developers with commercial projects, guiding businesses with location and expansion projects, identifying project resources and their implementation, generating marketing materials and programs to promote the city, and other duties listed in your budget narrative. We're looking forward to the tenancy of the Vanguard building and completion of the HSA building, as well as the Scudo facility. We're also looking forward to fulfillment of our extensive negotiations and establishment of TID 9 to support Karma Laboratories headquarters, manufacturing, distribution, and warehousing consolidation project. And that'll result in $14 million of new assessed valuation, retention of 200 jobs, and stimulation of development activity in TID 9. Collaboration with several other larger projects has taken a lot of time and effort this year to advance their projects to various stages of development. Our retention expansion meetings have been fruitful, and we anticipate more time for them as the previously stated projects conclude. And the Economic Development Commission is contracted through the city with Carl Collective to generate marketing materials and update economic development web pages, and that's coming out of this year's budget, but you won't see it in next year's budget. So I mentioned all these things, and so we can dive right into the budget itself. Following Public Works, I need to remind you, these are not in units of thousands. Okay? So the item that you pointed to, Mr. Chairman, other professional services, item 0641-5219. That last year, that was just for some incidental professional services that we might need, and maybe some contracting with marketing professionals to get some professional services, potentially specific legal type services, as with other commissions. But $35,000 was added this year. The Economic Development Commission wanted to do a strategic planning process. And we did do an RFP this year, and the proposal, well, we didn't have proposals submitted, and in canvassing some of the targeted companies that we reached out to, potential bids were like, $15,000, $31,000 that could come in. They were busy because they were way less expensive than larger firms that deal with larger metro areas, such as Green Bay, which was $155,000 to do this process, and $50,000 to renew it. So we're not in that category, and I expected we wouldn't. So that's the number that we felt we needed to go with to make sure that we could execute the strategic planning process. We'll try to save dollars where we can.
I would say working with Mr. Riggets in this capacity as mayor has been, I can't say how impressed, I'm so impressed with you, John, with how well you just dove in and took that leadership role. And the biggest part I was, learned from you was dealing with Karma project with that, TIFs, TIDs. I mean, you hit the ground running, and I don't know if your wings were opened up and free to fly as of April, but whatever you were doing prior seems like right now you've come into your own, and you're the leader that we hope for, and now I'm seeing you as the leader that you are. And I want to thank you for everything you've done and are doing, and every project we're in, you take the lead. I'm very confident in your efforts. You explain things very well to the novice, which is me. You're coming into when you're going to the intricacies of things. So, John, I'm very happy. I just wanted to go and make sure on record that everybody knows that. You've been great to deal with. I have yet to have anybody in all the projects we're dealing with, like this fire hose of stuff coming through. Everybody's impressed with you. Everybody says good things about you. So just thank you for everything you're doing.
I have to echo that. Absolutely.
And we have a bundt cake to present to you, sir.
All right.
Only partial.
Thank you for the kind words.
I just have one thing I just want to bring up, because being in this in Franklin for 25 years now, what I'm seeing is a lot of the younger generation people moving in, a lot of things happening here. And these people, I mean, like my kids, but they're more into these things for social media, where we are talking about our city or how we market, how we do those things. Like this is where I think it makes a huge difference as we are moving forward and trying to address this population. I think as a city, I mean, as Franklin, we've got thing. I mean, I know you don't have resources or work on those things, but like, how do you see that?
We can engage professionals in this that can help us with putting that out there. Kind of needed a policy shift. Last year, when I came to this board, to this commission, we had a policy shift at the city level that we wouldn't be doing social media pages. So, and the reason is kind of tough to manage if it's an open two-way dialogue platform. It's tough to manage all of the comments that can come through. So a bit of a policy change would be needed, and given that direction,
I was just saying social media, but on the other side, like if people want to know what's new, what's coming, and things like that, every once in a while I call the planning and check, what's coming, are there any new subdivision, what's happening, things like that. So even on our website, or
it would need to be an informative platform that isn't necessarily a commentary forum.
Is that part of the strategic planning, is looking at some of those?
That's fair game. And obviously the strategic plan would be inclusive of various city commissions and departments, and so we need to figure out how big that is, or how far we would do the engagement with the public. At least one setting with the public would be part of that. In talking with the contractors, the more public forums you have, the more it costs. So.
Any other questions? Okay.
So I would point out one of the items we have is our business volunteer recognition. Funding has gone down on that, so we'll have to ask the commission to figure out how they want to develop funds for that. We can save enough dollars in other places. Maybe we can fund that again with permission from the mayor. But we'll see. Part of their program work that they want to do is go out and solicit sponsors.
Right. Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much, John.
I would mention one thing in conclusion. Economic development facilitates and attracts investment and job creation in the community. And then sometimes we facilitate investment. That's as a method to establish projects. And Alderman Holtfer and I have talked about that. But when the agreement for that establishment and that investment concludes and that's done, then they become fully functional members of the community. And it's not a continuing subsidy program. It's more of a seed capital kind of program that we do like with KID, more with other promotional type of thing. So just so I think just trying to get that out into the public and into the network and here in the city, which we're pretty much aware of. But sometimes I wonder if the public at large understands that it's not a subsidy program. It's a seed capital type that we do something. Okay, good to see so many Packer fans wearing their garb, and for the rest of us, you've got your Christmas gift lists started.
Go Bears.
Thank you.
Thank
Ew.
Ew.
No bun cake for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a 5-minute break?
Oh,
Yes, please.
Yes,
Yes,
please.
please.
sure.
Okay, 5 minutes.
Cut of that bun cake.
Be back here by.
I got to quickly check that.
Hope you're still order 2.
Think about it. I love. That looks good.
Oh, my keys inside.
It's my birthday.
What?
Can we go
Is
with
it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Happy birthday!
Oh, we'll
Faces
sing when we come
told me
back
it
on
was your
record.
birthday, yes.
Oh, we're all
Oh, yeah. John actually,
Birthday.
Some employees we are.
I think we're the same age now, officially.
46?
Yep.
Just kids.
Still youngest in the room. I noticed your date of birth somewhere, and I was like, oh man, I just took a little over a week older. Okay.
Yeah, if my day sent me in a different direction, I picked up something from the Epic Deli. I was not sent to McHenry.
I think.
Do you have any special assessments in the budget here? Is that like done and not?
I'm sorry?
Like special assessment, kind of a certain year you're doing some big project as part of the budget, and it's not part of the property tax, the special things.
I mean, yeah, we have those special assessments. Typically see them come up, discussions about water. I'm trying to think of what else we would have a special assessment for outside of water. Special assessments.
Got one coming up for sidewalks halfway.
What he said. So yeah.
Special assess for fancy lighting sometimes. It's like on 27th Street. We see the project. That's for water main, sewer main.
Okay.
To cover the we have in the past done curb and gutter. I can't tell you last time we done, but I do know we have such that.
What'd you get for your birthday?
I bought myself a hub for my
Like
my
that I
Surface.
bought myself.
Well, it's infuriating. It's like it only has the USB-C ports. So like, if I want to like throw anything going off flash drive,
Right. You have to have the adapter. I have adapters, but finding them when I need them is
that's why I put everything in my little. I am allegedly awful to shop for because I also.
Is that what the wife says?
So we're digging into the bun cake, are we?
That's what everyone tells me.
Oh.
I also am like, I also have a restriction that after my birthday, I'm not allowed to buy anything for myself, which I do often because I'm a grown-up.
Yeah.
Well, then they have no ideas for Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh, too funny.
So I get told like, yeah, you can't buy anything now, from now until the end of the year. That's dumb. You're dumb. Like,
I know, I love when
I'm
your
a grown
family-
up, but my response is not.
I love when your family's like, what do you want for Christmas? Nothing, because I buy it all for myself
Right.
throughout the year. I don't save anything and say, I'm gonna wait till Christmas food.
I don't do that.
My-
That's part of my impulsive.
my stock answer is when asked what do you want for Christmas, peace on earth, goodwill toward. So
Right. I think my husband just went with my birthday.
but I'm also I've been described as being very innovative in what I do. The other side, so I make everyone look bad.
Oh, nice.
So like when you're
One of those.
when you're like my kids and everyone else, I got them 3D printed heads. So they put their headphones, their blue light glasses
Oh, that's so
on
cool.
these heads, so that way it's not just stepped on in the family room because
Right.
someone decided to leave their headphones on the
That's
floor.
really cool.
So my daughter got a Spider-Man, my son got a World War II pilot sort of thing. So it's like, put your stuff on the head, keep it next to your desk or whatever, and everything will, be peaches and gravy. So whatever. It's like whatever.
For a moment there, I thought you were saying that they got their own heads as 3D printed. Were you thinking the same thing or no? Like it was going to
No,
be.
but I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
It could have made sense.
So my daughter's she collects Funko Pops.
Oh yeah. My son does.
So I'm going through and getting her a custom one of herself.
Oh, that's cool.
Last year I took her to the Shed Aquarium as her big gift, and she got to swim with beluga whales, so she was thrilled with that.
I'll know.
I try and do every year, because my kids have so much stuff. So I always do something different, whether it's the last couple of years, my son and I have done like a mom-son go to monster trucks. And then my daughter, Kane Brown, she's obsessed with Kane Brown, and he happened to be playing in Milwaukee like a couple weeks after Christmas. So I bought her and I tickets for that. So I try and do something different that might be where we can all do something together versus just all these gifts.
Well, my son is super simple because he wants things. So like he'll just give me his Amazon wish list. I'm like, okay.
Yep.
Oh yeah, my 15-year-old does that.
My
That's
daughter,
very cool.
however, is all about the experience.
Yep.
So it's like she doesn't want stuff. She wants to do things. So it's like
That's my daughter. My son's the gifts guy, and my daughter's like, no, take me to do something.
Programs that are funded by HRSA.
Oh, I have one that's both. It's like never enough. No matter what you do, the time you spend on it is just never enough. And she'll let you know it every time.
Okay,
Should we go forward? You ready, Mr. Howard?
Let's get going.
Let's rock and roll here.
All right. Should we skip down to information services? Because I think we have.
I tried to.
I have to wait and go on the interstate. I go out the interstate bit. You can go first. I'm waiting for Marquette to clear out.
All right, sounds good, Karen.
Okay.
Come on down.
Try to get everybody that was.
Yes, I did. You did what?
So which one are you doing?
I'm city clerk.
Huh?
City clerk.
City clerk.
Yes, sir.
27,130.
I think the estimation for complaints is a little.
Yeah, well, I think we've already surpassed it.
When you leave, I'm gonna walk over and tell you something.
Okay.
Remember.
How come we have so many complaints?
What's that?
How come we have so many complaints?
Have you been
You
to
live
one?
in Franklin.
Yeah, touche. That is a perfect response.
There's complaints about everything in Franklin, from weeds to mattresses in the road to on anything. Noise at the Rock.
Really?
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, we get one or two of those.
There's one big one. Okay, you wanna give us an introduction or
Sure.
go
So
right to the questions?
I can tell you what we do. So the clerk's office does a whole gamut of things. So we do elections, weed control, weights and measures, park and pavilion rentals. What I understand, we're going to soon be getting football court rentals. Yay! Complaints, open records requests, extraordinary events, which are multiplying by the dozens. Council meetings, board of review, we handle the mailroom, general switchboard, and then we do all of the licensing for the liquor stores and bartenders, and work with the license committee. And then we also have the two events that we currently have are 4th of July that we license for, and St. Martin's Fair. And John's favorite, mine not so much. And then we have the new, and I can't think of it for the life of me what the name of it is, but the new winter festival that's coming, so that we will be licensing those vendors as well at the festival.
Homes for the holiday.
Home for the holidays, thank you. So that's a general.
Okay. And you got one additional half a person?
I do. What we're looking at, like I said, we're adding the new Home for the Holidays. Doesn't seem like it's a lot, but that is a lot going for our office. So we do all of the licensing. We handle all the incoming calls. We were told it wasn't going to be any additional work for our office. And then again, I told you about the pickleball courts that we will be renting out. I'm not really sure how that's going to go, but I'm pretty sure with praise for pickleball that will be a wild new thing that we'll be doing in our office. Park rentals themselves are crazy. Again, you would think that's not much to do a park rental. One call can last from 5 minutes to a half an hour, with the questions of what's open to what's all included to how do I get my money back. You answered one question and 5 more pop up. So those take up a lot of our time. Park rentals and the special licensing for the fairs and the extraordinary events are becoming quite lengthy as well. So what we do with those are we license all those events, then we contact all the department heads, get their idea of what should be done for fire, health department, police, anything that they have, any issues that they find with any of the applications, we go back and talk to those applicants and have them work that out before coming to the license committee and pleading their case to see if they are granted license for their event. So all of that has increased substantially over the last several years.
As well as records.
Oh, and the open records. I failed to mention that. So
You blocked it out. You're like, no.
I try not to think about those, but we did this year install revenue. So anything over basically 2 hours of time searching for records, we can now bill for that. In the past, we weren't billing for any of that information. We were billing for paper copies of records that people wanted. That has pretty much gone by the wayside. People are more or less asking for everything online now. So most record requests that take under 2 hours are charged at $0 because they're just getting a file sent to them. Or if they want the information on a flash drive, it costs $6.50 for a flash drive. So all that information that we gather goes onto one flash drive and ends up costing the person requesting $6.50, where it takes us sometimes 8 hours to get the information together for them. So now at least we can charge for that additional hours that we're looking at.
That was a big deal.
Yeah.
Huge deal. Because if you ever have some spare time after budget stop in by Karen, you can also see the main people that are the same people asking over and over and over and over. It's not just the one citizen is looking, this is the same type of group. So what we're doing is we're looking at how much time can she be obligating, and at one point you figure almost 90% of your day was addressing these same people's open records requests, the same. And I mean, it's just something that had to be dealt with, and I'm glad it is. And I applaud Karen for taking on that responsibility to get that done, and her staff. And we actually have hopefully one staff member that's going to be expert trained in open records requests and how to fulfill them. And that should take a lot of that off her plate.
Hopefully. Yeah, and
in theory.
To be clear, the charges for the copies, charges for the USB drive, is that not all just the cost to us? Right.
It just covers our cost of paper and toner and the actual flash drive themselves.
Doesn't cover.
And
no. And Laker's not covered for the first $50, and it does not cover redaction.
Correct. So anything we have to redact, that's not something that we can cost for. That's right in the state statutes.
Yep. Any other questions about the budget?
Well, not directly to budget, sorry to delay things, John. When it comes to those rentals and things like that, and I haven't looked, is there like frequently asked questions on those things online that we can direct people to?
There is, and the Park Commission is actually trying to come up with a pamphlet, and I don't know how far they've gotten on that. We were having monthly meetings, but prior, that was when we had a planning manager. So since that position is open currently, not being fulfilled currently, we haven't been having those meetings, so I'm not real sure where they are on the pamphlet. There are some things that we tweak in the pamphlet to make it more user-friendly. It's a long guide, so every park has a different set of guidelines, different set of amenities. So it gets to be really long, so it's a lot to put on the internet. But if the pamphlet does get done, we can have a link to it so that they can actually look through.
You have a link for the park meeting?
When that's there, they just don't.
What's that?
It's there, but either they don't read it or they can't find it on the page.
Yeah, I've gone looking for things and been able to figure out where it is. So. It won't solve everything, but if it helps, or
right.
You send up a link and then they send you an email rather than 20 minutes on the phone.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I had one comment on what we're doing here. So on that park thing, I sign a lot of checks, and I sign a lot of park rental refund checks. We used to say how that works, because I send 25 tonight or 50. Well, how does that work? Like, so if I go and rent a Ken Wendell Pavilion up the road from my house, how's that work?
So you put a deposit down on the park that you're renting. The deposit's anywhere from $150 to $200, depending on the location and what's all involved, all the amenities involved. After the park rental is over, we have a person that goes in and cleans all of the parks. If there's no issues, if there's no destruction of any of the property, we send back their deposit to them. So that's what you're seeing. If there is some kind of destruction that we have to fix in the pavilion or outside on the grounds, then we'll get that rental money.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Just moving forward, would it be possible to compile the amount of open records requests for future kind of reference of, for being able to say how many hours and the volume that would be involved as far as that goes?
I could probably get something for you. Yes, you could come in and see the open ones that I have and the closed stack that I have. So what I do is I keep track of every record that comes through. I print off most of them come through emails. If they come in my office, we have them fill out. We don't have a form currently. We are currently working on that. That will be on the website as well. But when they come into the office, we have them fill out the information on a paper, and then we date stamp that. So then after all of the information is sent to them or given to them, it's all closed and put in a closed file. So I could go through and count all of those that have come through and that we've closed throughout the year and then that are open.
I think it would be really nice to be able to put some context, the amount of time that's kind of devoted to that side of things, you know, where, and then being able to kind of stack of like, okay, well, if we're putting together 200 park permits and then that grows to 400 via pickleball, and then you have the same amount of complaints at 500 and then 400 open records requests, that kind of speaks to staffing levels and as far as the time that would be, you know, necessary to fulfill all of the requests. Things like that.
Right. And I would say number of requests is probably not as important as detailed requests. I have some requests that take 5 minutes to do, and then I have some requests that go to 5 departments, and that time limit on those is much higher, and circling back with some of the departments or sending the information out to the person and they come back saying, no, I didn't do that, I wanted this. And so, I mean, the amount compared to what the scope is probably the difference.
Would it be easier than to, I don't know, but with the new standard as far as like the billing, using that as the metric instead of number of that versus hours spent?
Again, that's hard to say because we don't bill until after we've reached 2 hours.
Okay.
So it's kind of like
It's hard to define.
Each record request takes a different amount of time. Okay. But I can get the information, or I can start compiling that.
Well, and I think it's also important to stress that it's not just billing for the time, but it's billing for the lowest paid person time. So even if Karen's working on this, it's not at her billable rate.
These complaints that you get, these are just calls and they come up and
They're calls. People stop in and make complaints at the front counter, and there's also a spot on the website that you can go to and file a complaint. So those all come to the clerk's office. We analyze each complaint, and if it is a building complaint, we'll send it to the inspection department. They turn around and follow up with what they need to do, and then sometimes we have to circle back with them to see if things have cleared up or not, because sometimes after a week or so, if it's not closed, we see that in the system, so we'll go back and ask if it's taken care of, or sometimes we'll have somebody call back and say they hadn't heard back from a certain department, so then we're circling back with that department. They come in all forms, email, much however anybody can communicate.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Also back there.
Oh, Karen's got a few of them.
Yep, if we went through Carrie was gonna knock out some Karen's stuff.
I have elections. I don't know.
Oh, okay, elections.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 127.
So with elections this year, we have 4 coming up in the next year. I was on the phone right before this meeting with the county elections people. There is some legislation currently being looked at to add a date for elections for processing absentee ballots. They're thinking about making it mandatory, so it would be 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. the Monday prior to the election, so it would be 2 days of elections instead of just 1. And this would be for central count communities only. So there are 8 central count communities in Milwaukee County. We are one of those. From what I understand, 7 of the 8 would like to not make it mandatory, but if we would like to do it, we would do it. We would probably partake in processing or starting to process ballots the day before. I don't see a full day for probably 3 of the 4 elections, so making it mandatory for our staff to sit there all day, me doesn't make sense, but the county is going to go back to the state with violation of what they have gotten from all of the communities walking. So if this year is anything like the last presidential election year, legislation will change multiple times prior to the November election. Will only add to stress and complication of all of the elections. In 2020, I know there was a change in October right before the election, so that always increased staff time as well to try and educate the other staff at the polling location. So it will be a fun year for elections this year, but part of the game, part of the process.
How are you set on poll workers?
We last year were skating by with poll workers, but I think that was more because people like to do the bigger elections. So only having 2 elections last year and having them be smaller elections, you don't get as much interest in being a poll worker. We put out a form in our last newsletter asking for additional poll workers. We have gotten a lot of requests for people to become poll workers. We'll probably be having just a general meeting for those new people at the end of this year to try and explain to them exactly what we're looking for and to try to feel them out to see if they have experience or how excited, but how much they really want to work.
How enthusiastic they are.
There you go.
So I guess one of my questions, since we're all here in one room, is, and I know we kind of talked a little about this, or perhaps coming to the next senior lunch, which is the first Wednesday of the month at 11 o'clock at Swagger in the River Bowling Alley. Last one was about 130 seniors were there. Very engaged. They're very engaged. That'd be a great place to start, and I would definitely, be a proponent of that. If you wish to attend, talk a little bit. Number one, number two. If now this year we have how many elections?
Well, we have 4 scheduled.
Including primaries.
We have 4 scheduled. We'll do 3 for sure. February is always up in the air. So if we need February, we'll have a 4th one. If we don't need February, we'll have 3. Depending on if we need the February primary.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anything else you're responsible for here?
Oh, do you want to talk about the election?
Oh yeah, I'll just
capital?
say that. Yeah, so there's
Capital?
a new postage machine in the Capitol, and then also the DS200 election that were included in the mayor's recommended budget. On page.
So the postage machine, after looking further into it, I think is in the administrative budget. I put it in there because my office deals with all of the postage incoming and outgoing mail. So we've always taken care of the postage meter. I'm not sure why it's in the administrative budget, other than it takes care of the entire city. That's why it was put there. So the postage meter that we currently have is no longer being supported after this year. Being said, if anything happens to it and it dies, we'll have to go to the post office and buy stamps, which will not be fun. And that's just not even something that would be feasible. So the postage machine that is currently in the budget, the capital budget, I don't believe is a major increase from the one that we purchased. It was 8 years old that we pretty much stayed status quo on the pricing. And they will support that and give us all the updates throughout the Then the election equipment, so like I was saying, we are one of 8 municipalities in Milwaukee County that has central count. Our central count location has 2 DS200s, which is our tabulating machines. Those machines are still in good operational use. The problem is they are very slow machines and it takes a long time to use them. Ideally, I would have a machine for each district to take care of all of the absentee ballots per district. I'm proposing to add 2 machines, so that would double our machines in central count, which would cut back on our result times. With the legislation that I was currently talking about, they are looking to add more reporting to central count as well with this legislation. So any central count ballots that are not processed by 8 p.m., they are looking to do a required reporting every hour until they're finalized. I know with the last presidential election, the municipality that I was in had roughly 3/4 of the voters that we have here in Franklin, and it took us 24 hours to put the ballots through for that election in the machine. So
Was that the delay in the mayor's? Like, I remember it was like 11:30 almost that night before.
yeah, that was
all tabulated.
Wasn't that part of it? 'Cause wasn't District 6 also?
District 6 was taken care of well before that,
okay.
but yes, that was the huge delay, is the amount of time that
It was insane.
it was insane.
It was a long night. Bagpiper was sleeping.
And that is one of our smaller elections. The November election next year will be much heavier.
Monster.
Yeah. So think about 11:30. It'll probably be closer to 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yes.
What is the impact on a February primary for something like where if it's just Oak Creek Franklin School Board that has a primary versus Franklin Public Schools and Whitnall and Oak Creek? Like, what sort of impact does that place as far as a burden on?
So the turnout will be substantially less, but the procedure will be identical, because you will have to go through the entire process, even though you just have that one small group. Don't have any cutback in time, unfortunately. Question?
Okay, anything else?
Dealer avoids measure.
Measure.
192, 193.
So you'll see a large increase this year, or going into next year. That was an increase from the state, the contract amount from the state, and that was due to their fee structure. And I'm being told this is the first increase from them in 20 years. So what we do is we also, any of our businesses in the city that is impacted by this or has a scale in their business, they are invoiced for their portion of the wages that we are charged.
So essentially that whole 6,800 comes back to us.
Yes.
Other ones?
Martin's Fair, 37.
You'll also see a significant increase in the St. Martin's Fair budget. This is basically due to the fact that we've been running in a negative for several years. What happens with this budget is that all of the wages for the police and fire and health and clerk's office, anything that has to do with St. Martin's Fair is charged directly there to mimic where the costs are coming from. So that is why they were running in deficit. The increase will cover. There's also rental for porta potties in that expense. That was almost $17,000 porta potties. The major expense, other than.
When you say that you're handling the permits for vendors, like for the holidays and the civic celebration, so we've got somebody in civic celebrations that's going out soliciting the people. What is she doing compared to what you're doing?
So they're soliciting the people come in, and we actually have to license them at the event. So we do a background check on all of our vendors that come in. Any vendor that sells food items has to be vetted then by the health department. So we take in all of the applications for those vendors and then license all of them to be here, and then send anybody down to the health department that also.
And we have a contract. You have to sign the contract. You have to provide insurance. And
for St. Martin's Fair, we do not ask for insurance, and I'm not sure if we are asking for insurance for the civic celebration.
so if somebody was to decide they want to do a farmer's market, that'd be dumped on your lap as well?
Yeah, so when St. Martin's Fair was doing the farmer's market, weekly farmer's market, that was the clerk's office.
It was the first Monday of the month.
Not doing that anymore?
No.
About 10 years ago. Well, we just couldn't get vendors and street closing and all this.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
Last in the weed control, or is that
Oh.
just norm? That's.
Weed control is just pretty much normal. I think that stayed the same as I recall.
I think I decreased that a tiny bit because it had been so low over some years.
Yeah, and that's just based on mainly complaints. If we get a complaint about tall weeds, then we work with our weed commissioner to send him out to check to see if it's actual weeds or if it's ornamental grass. And if it's weeds, then we give them, the owner of the property, we give them a chance to take care of the problem themselves. If they don't, send the commissioner in to cut the grass or weeds. That's the problem.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Miranda.
I'll follow you up. So Jim up next, or what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Oh, city attorney.
Didn't think of it until I got back to the office, because I wasn't looking at my budget when the treasurer asked about the reduction in hours, and I thought, oh, they're still in session, I better go back and tell them, because I was thinking about attorney hours. That was legal secretary hours included. And back in July, I was directed that we should not be doing the agendas, minutes, ordinances for certain boards, commissions, committees. So we drew that entire position down to 3 hours a day and down to $27.
So that was the decrease in those
And it was
hours. Okay.
around a $38,000 decrease in that category in the budget.
Okay.
Okay.
So just thought I'd correct myself from saying, I don't know where that came from.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesse.
This is a running joke that's been around the IT department since Dennis Sidrick was originally here for it, but I think kind of, I always say a picture's worth 1,000 words. What do you do for a job? Well, here it is.
Very curious. Oh, yes, you're good.
Yeah, he's seen it. An oldie but a goodie. I'm Jim Matowski. I'm the director of IT. Right now, we're down a person, so we are basically a strong department of 2 people, me and Ryan Booz over at the police department. I do have 2 GIS consultants who turn around and work for us. They work on Mondays and Wednesdays. That when they're not here, they're over in New Berlin, working on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and sometimes on Fridays for it. We were going to turn around and hire on a consultant as a full-time employee this year. That was the plan in January of 2023. Unfortunately, things went awry, and the salary that we were offering her was lower than what she was making. We had to try to come up about $6,000, which means it would have had to go up a different grade level on that. Well, we couldn't do that. She decided to leave in March. So we lost an employee who was fully trained both here at City Hall and the police department for it. We did bring in a consultant for a short period of time over at the police department to help with the video surveillance project, which you probably noticed we now actually have working cameras here now in City Hall that are out in the hallways for it, and they're finishing up the cabling this week, so we soon are going to have new working video surveillance cameras over at the library. So that was a big project, over $300,000 just in inventory and cameras and equipment and parts coming in. And Ann's job was to maintain what was all coming in. So last thing I wanted them to turn around and do is say, hey, we shipped you a camera. We went to the stock room, looked for it, and it's not there. What did you do with it? And then we're going to have to turn around and go through all the invoices and try to figure out. I knew that would be a big risk in that project, having that many parts all involved with that issue. So she did a wonderful job on it. Also handled all the questions of where things needed to go within the police department. But her last day with us was August 31st. So she retired and went down to Florida. And we went bye-bye to Ann, and now we're down 1 person, and we're probably going to be down 1 person all the way until the end of this year. So once we get the new money for 2024, the goal is to go back to Robert Half Technology, that's where we got married from, have them do the recruiting and try to find the person that can meet job description and also meet all the security requirements for the police department as well. It's going to be a hard find. That's why I'm having the consulting agency turn around and do it. And then with Robert Half, we can turn around and do a contract to hire. So after 1 year, we can basically turn around and hire the person on for $1,000 for it. Where a lot of other consulting agencies, you can't turn around and hire their employee or the contractor. Their contractor, their employee, there's no compete agreement. That's one reason why we moved from Heartland for contracting and then turned around and moved over to Robert Half Technology on it. Our goal still is to eventually be completely and totally off of contractor. Not going to happen through 2024 because we're going to have to go through a whole year of that contractor, but that hopefully will give us an opportunity when we have the GovHR study where they will then turn around and reevaluate grade levels. Maybe we can finally get the grade level up to a semi-market price. And then we know that, all right, that's probably where either we would be recruiting the new person at or hiring the new person who is a current contractor on. So that's going to be a decision to be made actually in 2025. One of the first things you'll see in the operations side is the salaries went down. We did look at trying to add in an additional headcount for it, but there just wasn't the budget to go ahead and do that this year. So it'll be just Ryan's 15% increase that the Common Council recently approved, plus the standard increases that we get. So it'll be standard in our salary budget for that, and then the third person, instead of being in salary, is going to turn around and actually be in data processing for City Hall. So that gets a little confusing when you take a look at it until you actually hear the story.
What's the role?
Pardon?
What was the role of that lady who had?
It is Tier 3 help desk is what we're looking at turning around and hiring. So it's more than just a straight help desk administrator. It's help desk administration plus system administration as well. They're working on the servers. They're provisioning out user accounts for it. So it is a higher level position than you would get at a straight help desk account. Right now, if you compare it, Our help desk 3 right now is graded and has the salary level almost of a help desk 2. That's at the very entry level of it. It's almost being graded as a help desk 1 right now. So we know that we have some grading issues with that particular job description. Want to start on capital?
We keep rolling.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just run down very, very quickly the capital items. $12,000, we have our emergency capital replacements. That's been in place now for over 10 years on it. That would be for any capital requests, any replacements, any repairs of the equipment, any last minute projects that people didn't announce that needs to suddenly have software or computer or hardware associated with it. So that's a returning item that we see each and every single year. Windows 12 PC replacements, for IT's share of this is $5,993. Danielle did a fantastic job. It's a $184,000 project total. And they got allocated out. All right, fire department, here's your share of computers. We're putting that in your budget. Police department, here's your share of computers. Being put in your budget. So IT, instead of 184, as you would see in the capital request, because I put it all in IT, it's only down to 593 because that's only our piece of it. The DMS, that's a document management system. One of the things that IT does also is open records requests, primarily on email, but the DMS is going to be helping a lot with document searching. So instead of putting all of your documents, and I've been going for this now for 6 years, and this is the first time ever it's actually made it past the mayoral budget on it, that this has been a well-recognized needs that we're getting rid of our Windows file server, at least for City Hall, and it's going now over to a database. So you put it into a database. Our first thing that we're going to do is create a taxonomy. So it's going to be a big card catalog listing of all your different document types and categories and what documents could actually be. So when you import your document into the DMS, when you save your file, it's going to record who did it, what department you are in, what time it did, what's the subject matter of it, and then also it's going to automatically take what type of document. Is it a meeting agenda? Is it a common council action sheet? Is it a budget particular item? And you can have multiple tags on this. And you basically searching for documents by the tags and the classification. So you have to have a really good classification system for your taxonomy before you build out your DMS for it. So then this project is to build out the DMS. This is software, and then help build out the actual DMS and the setting of it up. And then we're just going to start having the professional services of Konica Minolta coming in and taking everything that's on CH File 01 and importing it into the DMS and then making sure that it's classified correctly to the taxonomy. Which means, in theory, you should turn around and be able to find everything fairly quickly by doing just common name searches. Also, it's going to do an OCR full texting of every single document. So as the document gets put in there, it's OCR, object character recognition, at the exact same time. So if I take a 300-page budget and I actually import it in there, it's actually going to know all the words that are actually in that budget. And you can search on a word in that actual budget in addition to the tags for it. So, and it'll then classify just how good the hit is based upon what the search text that you have and what the tags are for it. So that should make finding documents better. Instead of trying to find a document in a file tree, it's going to be a big problem in engineering when Debbie finally retires, main secretary down there. She knows, because she's been dealing with it for 30 years, where everything is stored. Debbie retires. She's the only person knows that where it was stored. Now we got to find another way to tag it. So, pardon? So
he's agreeing.
Yeah. So the big issue that we're going to be seeing now in the future is doing it and doing it right. Konica Minolta is a very large partner who does this globally at this point in time. They also do document scanning as well. So we're looking at just the engineering department. There's about 1.5 million documents that they have down in their file cabinets, down in engineering. And they're going to take them and put them in boxes, white gloves, put them all in order, take them over to the scanning facility for Konica Minolta. They'll run them through the big machines, and they got 6 Sigma people there that actually look to make sure, all right, what is the document? Is it aimed correctly? Is it upside down? Is it a 2-page document? Is it a single document? Sometimes you got typewritten documents. Sometimes you got mimeograph things from the 1950s in there. Did it actually scan it correctly? So they'll be proofing 1.5 million documents of this going through there. And they're doing this for 21 grand, which I find an amazing price on it. And they're basically going to start taking those file cabinets and then making them electronic documents and then adding it to the DMS. Because a lot of those documents right now may not be part of it. And they got the big plotter copiers too, or if they want to do blueprints and diagrams, etc. for it.
Is this in-house or on cloud?
Pardon?
Is this an in-house?
It's going to be on-prem for the moment, but because we're building our fiber optic network. Still not done, so we're building a big fiber optic network all the way around Franklin. Cabling should be done hopefully by the end of October, and then Common Council on the 3rd, we're going to be looking at turning around and purchasing the firewalls for that. And once they put the firewalls in, now we're going to have high-speed, high-reliability internet access. Once we do that, now we can start look at doing a mass migration to the cloud. And in our OpEx budget, one of the big things that we're going to be looking at doing first and foremost is going into Office 365. Every municipality in Milwaukee County is on Office 365. We are the last ones that are not on it. They're also on Microsoft Teams. So we can finally join the Teams meeting without it turning around and going to say, what? As part of that. That was fun during the pandemic. So
What's going to happen to all the paper files?
That's a good question. I mean, they're going to put them back exactly where they found them. That's part of the agreement. So they remove them and they put them back where we found them. Then it's up to the department manager. I don't know what the legal requirements are. If we have the paper of the electronic copy, can we get rid of the paper? Based upon Oak Creek, and when they built the new city hall, they just said, we're leaving all this paper here. We're not taking it with us. We're going to do a scanning of all of our documents before we turn around and move into our new city hall. On it, I think the answer to that is we won't need them anymore, but I'm not a legal scholar, so I don't know for sure.
At a minimum, maybe long-term storage that you free up all
7
of
years.
space.
I don't, but if it's a government record, it could be forever.
Well, but let's say we had to, or we could simply, generally speaking, it's 7 years, but if we had to, we did with Coakley. They do a thing where they warehouse the stuff, they pick it up, take it down, inventory it, and get it out of here. There's options.
Well, that's what I meant. You're freeing up the existing workspace.
Right, that's the goal.
Because right now it's a fire hazard. When you look at it, that you should see how the jail cells are downstairs from the police are just filled with boxes, and we haven't even looked. That was just one room was 1.5 million. I don't even want to know when we start going around the building how many million total of documents that we actually have here.
Got a lot in finance.
Yeah, tons, just tons. So this will be a long time project for it, and we're test driving it year 1 on the document scanning. Hopefully they do a fantastic job and they say, hey, yeah, that works, and we'll just do another department each and every single year until we're done.
So this is just for one department?
That's just for one department. That's setting up the DMS, importing all of the files from the file server into the DMS, and scanning 1.5 million documents for one department. Which in reality, that's actually a pretty good price when you look at it. You're getting all of that for that number.
How much is the software itself?
It's about $18,000.
Software.
Just the software itself, yes.
But some of that then is going to be just a fixed cost that this year is absorbing.
Correct.
So
once the DMS is built, once we have our taxonomy, the majority of the cost isn't in the document scanning. The majority of the cost is licensing the DMS, setting up the DMS, importing all the new files. That's a one-time cost.
And how many users license?
It's based upon concurrent usages.
It's a concurrent.
And I have to look at it. I want to say it's 50 concurrent at one given period of time, and I have to move the quote.
That's good.
Something I've been dreaming of since I set this menu.
That's the first thing. I think it was the first month that I was here. You stopped by my office and I need this, and we've been fighting it basically ever since.
And we had a conversation too, and I said, if we don't start it now, when will it be started?
Right. And when we look at open records requests and the amount of human effort is, if we can let the computer do the work, so much better.
Well, and just even the OCR to be able to go into a PDF document. I was just looking at one for PDD 37, go into it and not have that ability is, I mean, 280 pages. I can't.
And a little side, I don't want to go down into Pandora's box yet on it with the website, which is Pandora's box. But the decision was made by Mark Liberta, and we last did an update refresh of our website, that we would only do the current years, and any new documents on the website would be OCR. Any existing website document, going back for 10 years, so we cut it off at 10 years at that date, we would not do OCR, because everything up on the website that was prior to the date from our last conversion, when you open up that PDF, it's just an image of dots on it. If you hit Control F to do a find on it and put the word "the," it's not going to find anything. It's just dots. You have to run it through an OCR management server or a photocopier with an OCR board on it. Actually have it do the text recognition, which then just puts an overlay on top of the existing file for what the glyphs are that it detected for it. And you need to have good software that doesn't screw up the words on it as well for it. But a lot of those documents on the website, 10 years of documents on that website, are not OCR'd.
I was going to ask, so OCR, I have Adobe Acrobat that seems to kick in and ask if I want it converted to OCR.
Adobe Acrobat Pro has an OCR engine in it that will turn around and do the object character recognition for it. We also have that when you scan it and you're scanning it to your L drive, not your H, your L drive, it goes through the drive server. So it's a little hidden secret. When you scan from the photocopiers to the L drive, it automatically does OCR for it. Now, if you put it to some other drive other than L, then it's not going to turn around and do it. It's not in its input-output folder for it. That server automatically turns around and does it for you. Nuance PDF, now Kofax PDF, does the exact same thing, and that actually uses the OmniPage OCR engine in it, and that one's actually better than Adobe. It does better detection for it. So not all OCR engines are the same, because you have jargon, and will the OCR engine recognize the jargon, or when you look at the letter J, depending on the typewriter that you have, or if it's handwritten in there, it may be able to do better detection on it or not. That's where we're taking it and having it professionally done is going to be so much better, because it's Six Sigma. It's going to be the best of the OCR engines that you get.
Jim, one last question. I mean, on this document management, when you take this system, I mean, have you looked at the bigger picture, like how it can integrate in the future when you have permits, licenses, planning, and all of that?
The goal eventually is to have that an endpoint in an overall workflow.
Okay.
That we realize, and here we really need not only a business analyst, we need a business process analyst. Go into each department and look at all of the processes that they have in their own internal department. The place to start would be planning. And you can have a good process, and you can have a bad process. It's just the process. It's the process that everyone's done, because that's the way we've always kind of turned around and done it. And often that process isn't documented. It's spoken by word of mouth from employee to employee to employee. So you have to, before you can automate something, you have to understand it. You cannot automate that which you do not understand. If you don't understand your processes, if you don't have them documented, you are not going to be able to automate it. So the benefits of putting all of this into a document management system is it's still a manual process. Ultimately, we'd like to get eventually a business process analyst in here to look at the processes within the department and then interdepartmentally. So as we go from department to department to department, and typically in a BPMN environment, business process management, you look at when you do a handoff of information from one department to another. That handoff area is normally the areas that you turn around and automate, because that means you have an information flow going from one department over to the other. That's where you start putting the documentation and all the automation in. So And we know that definitely can be done with BSNA, with the workflow module, which we own the software, but we barely touched anything with the workflow software with it. The goal is to eventually have that stuff both in BSNA, which is our ERP system, and also within the document management system.
And now you know where I got that from. We've had very, very good conversations about automate.
Just looking at the request budget, why the really low figure for the telephone?
That's in operations. I'll put that in the parking lot for the moment.
Okay.
Because we're in CapEx, but I'll touch on that because I actually do have a couple questions on that too.
Okay.
But that does tie into a capital project that we're working on now.
All right.
I'll just move on just a moment for the capital. The next one is the 3-par sand disc expansion. The 3-par is our sand. We have a fiber channel sand here at City Hall. We have one over at the police department. It was put in 2016. It officially goes end of life at 10 years on it. So in 2026, officially end of life. This year is the last year you can turn around and buy. 2024, August of 2024 will be the absolute last year you can buy parts for the 3-par. You can still use it till August of 2026. But you can't buy any more disc shelves and you can't buy any more drives put into your sand. So what we're doing is we're filling them up as much as we can with drives. Hopefully that'll hold us and we'll be perfectly fine with it until we're able to turn around and look at putting in a whole new sand. That is going to have to be a capital budget for 2025 or 2026. And that one's going to be expensive. When you look at the 5-year plan on that one's going to be, we spent about $100,000 for the 3-par sands, each of them, when we came in here. So that will be a big capital expenditure coming up in the future. Now I am hoping with going to the cloud that we can start using data in the cloud, but then we have to be a little careful. Are we moving that in CapEx and OpEx? And then there's certain data like criminal evidence and video for criminal evidence of crimes. You really don't want that out in the cloud. So some of that data, particularly the video stuff.
It's still a private cloud.
You can do a private cloud on it, but you have to be very careful on where you do it and how you structure it. And then do we want to make that an OpEx or a CapEx expense, which is actually operational that has been capitalized over multiple years for it, instead of actually buying the hardware and going into the cloud? So we'll have to look at the pros and cons of the costs on that very carefully.
You said hopefully you'll buy it what you can, and hopefully that'll get us through.
Yes.
Worst case scenario, then what's the fallback? Does that just push the timetable for everything else up?
Well, I tried to turn around. The biggest is the plans and consumptions. I think we can turn around and do it. However, you have to always realize that we are in the bottom of the totem pole. You have the federal government, you have the state government, you have the county government, and you have the municipal government. Anyone above you on the totem pole can suddenly make a change in regulation. My favorite is the unfunded mandate, and away you go, and suddenly you have to turn around and implement something. That's what I worry about most. We have enough disk space at least until 2025 for the police department. I worry about an unfunded mandate where suddenly we're now going to have to turn around and be forced to record a lot more video information than we were originally anticipating, and that's where we may run into trouble. I control what we do, but I can't control what government above us does.
So in that case, then what's the next step?
The next step is we would probably look at, first thing I would be looking is any type of cloud storage where we could turn around and put it. For example, body cameras. What happens if we had an unfunded mandate to suddenly say the PD has to put in body camera? That is an enormous amount of data that you're recording, because every single officer, while he's on the beat all the time, turning around and having this camera with them, and then you have to turn around and upload that information. And yeah, eventually you can delete it out, but it has to be on the system for about 30 days, whatever the regulations turn around and tell you. Now you're recording information, not only what's going on in the squad car, but you're also turning around and recording video that's going on in every single person. Our current police chief says, no, I don't want to do body camera. Could a new police chief or some other regulation mandate that we suddenly do body cameras? I'm just using this as an example. Yeah, that could then suddenly, very quickly, increase the amount of disk space of video, because that's our number one consumer right now is video. Suddenly increase the disk space that we have allocated for at the moment. So then I look like, all right, if I'm constrained on what I can put in the data center, well, I have to look outside of my data center to turn around and put it. And that's where the fiber optic WAN comes into play.
An unknown risk that really can't put a probability in.
Correct. And the technology, we look at security risks right now, not as much as operational risks, but we do create a risk watch matrix in the Technology Commission. We do know what our greatest risks are to the city right now. And unfunded government mandates is one of them. You never know what suddenly the government above you will change on any given period of time, and now you have to somehow become compliant, and if they don't give you money for it, you have to try, think fast, rabbit. You have to somehow come up with the funds and a solution. So that's our 3-par. Generation 6 iPad replacements, even though I have this in IT, this does hit multiple departments, primarily the fire department. We used to spend $5,000 a year on a Panasonic Toughbook. And I live in Whitefish Bay, and they still have them in the squad cars, and I can't believe it. You're really using that? $5,000 each, ruggedized Toughbook. And the fire department had one inside the fire truck and ambulance, and then they had another one that they took with them, and they would be sitting here typing it like this every single time they were putting in electronic patient care records on it. So this is insane. Enough is enough. And they were a demon to try to turn around and support and keep up to date. So they went down to, at that time, it was a $350 iPad for it. And they've lasted a long time on it. I mean, they've lasted about 4 or 5 years now. Apple's finally dropping support of that particular iPad. And they've been really good for a low-cost machine on it that really isn't connected to our network. It's just connected to the internet. It's been a great solution for them. And they work completely and totally in the cloud on here. And we do have mobility management software that locks it down. So we have our set of icons and programs that they can get into, and they can't visit any other sites than what we tell them to visit on this. And if they break it, well, it's not that bad because it's not that inexpensive of machine on it. So we really didn't have, we had one that was bent by 2 gurneys in the shape of an L. But beyond that, we really haven't had any other major damage done to the iPads. They do put them in an OtterBox. So we're putting these in here for a refresh right now for the simple fact that they're no longer going to get patched by Apple. And the lithium-ion batteries only last so long. Normally you get 2 to 3 years before, off of the lithium-ion battery before it loses 50% of its charge. So they're losing power on top of it. The next one I have is the HP Enterprise Secure Printers. We are going to be soon moving from Toshiba copiers, which has now been officially bought out by, I think, Samsung. No, I take it back. Ryko. Ryko bought out Toshiba. Toshiba's practically going to be nothing, not nowadays, on it. So we're going to HP photocopiers. Part of HP photocopiers, we're putting in a security software package they call HP Wolf. And they use it to lock down printers, and they also use it to lock down PCs and laptops. This one has HP Wolf installed on it. You cannot put rogue firmware on here. And believe it or not, people are now actually using printers to turn around and hack your network. That the hacker will come in with their phone, and if you have NFC turned on your photocopier, or if it can get to it via the wireless network, it will try to turn around and inject rogue firmware actually inside your printer and use the printer as a launch point to turn around and attack their network. Cute little hackers that got nothing better to do than figure out new and novel ways to deal with this. HP Wolf, which we're putting in to help manage our printer fleet, has HP Wolf on it, and it will lock down the photocopiers. Now we're taking some of the most sensitive printers that we have and older printers, and we're putting them to an enterprise printer that actually has HP Wolf on it. That will help even further lock down the firmware and the configuration settings. When we last did our internal penetration testing, one of the biggest areas that we had was printer vulnerabilities on our network, and then turning around and trying to lock down the printers and the copiers as much as possible. So it is a point of penetration. And last but not least is Office 365. You're going to see this again in the operational budget. This is the one-time costs of moving our email and moving it over to the 365 cloud. We're currently on Exchange 2010. There is no, and it's a very old version. There is no direct migration path from Exchange 2010 over to Office 365. You have to bunny hop it in versions. So you first have to go from 2010 to 2013, to 2013 to over 2016 and 19, and then when you're either on 2016 or 19, then you can turn around and actually move it to the cloud. So you have multiple Exchange migrations that you have to do in order to turn around and go into the cloud. Also part of the one-time costs of this is turning around and enabling our Active Directory environment to be also placed in the cloud as well. So you're going to have Active Directory on Azure in addition to here. So it's going to be a hybrid Active Directory environment. You need to have it in order to authenticate with our accounts to the cloud for it. That's also part of that capital cost as well. Any questions on capital?
Including, I mean, you're talking about the licensing and that.
Licensing actually goes into OpEx. So now we'll move into OpEx. Any other questions on CapEx? Okay, I've talked your ears off. OpEx budget. The first
7:15.
I know, Joe.
7:15. Let's go. Let's go.
He knows me too well. I love to talk. Data processing, 127K. That's basically a little bit for consulting if we need it, but the majority of that is actually for the $50 an hour. Each Robert Half technology consultant that we're going to come in and have actually be our third help desk person that we hopefully will carry on within 1 year and then turn around and hire the person. Then we have GIS services. That's at 114,700. That's not much of that's no increase right now from what they're currently earning for 2023. Or just note that they are consultants, but we are keeping them basically at the same rate as 2023. Equipment maintenance. The Avaya phone system is going to soon be retired, and we're moving away from the on-premise phone system, and there is a CARES money capital project. I think it's $185,000 to turn around and buy a new phone system. It was decided by the Technology Commission to turn around and move instead of an on-premise phone system to then instead move to a phone system in the cloud. Looking at the various providers that we have, it's going to either be RingCentral, Vonage, or Zoom. Most likely it'll be RingCentral because they're the only ones that can give us the archiving things that's necessary for text messaging, which is part of Open Records request. So as part of the Unified Communication Services, which gives you phone and video conferencing and faxing and audio bridging and collaboration storage is part of that. That comes with every single phone account, in addition to be able to have a piece of hardware with it, so you can have either a physical phone or desk phone. The decision will be, do we want to buy the phone, or do we want to turn around and just put the phone in as part of the monthly phone charge on it? So you pay $2 to $3 per phone for the monthly phone charge, in addition to your licensing costs for that. And do we turn around and capitalize that entire amount for the $185 that we have, or do we just turn around and take the operational piece of it if we wanted to go with leasing it? And do we make that then become an operational expense on it? Right now we have $18,000 in telecom. I just skipped ahead on that, but that is a decision because we haven't signed any contracts yet, so we don't know what that's actually going to be. So we haven't signed a contract and haven't presented it to the Common Council yet.
So 185,000 is
Here's money.
Hardware.
That could be hardware if we decide to go down that route. So you can either buy the phone or you can lease the phone.
If you lease, then
if you lease the phone, then if you have any questions on your phone and support how your phone works, you call 1-800-POOF, and they will turn around and answer your questions. If you buy the phone, then they call the IT help desk to turn around and tell you how to use the functions and services of your phone.
no. I mean, my question is that 185,000. How would it change? Leasing versus.
If you lease, your lease cost will be the lease cost of the phone plus the license for the user. So there's a licensing cost per user, plus if you lease the phone from them. If you don't buy it, you lease it. It'll be lease of the phone plus licensing per user. That then becomes your annual cost. Then you turn around and take that, multiply it by 3 or 5, and you throw that into the capital budget. You want to turn
My
around
question
and
was
do that.
185.
Or instead of putting in the capital budget, you could put that all in the OpEx budget as well. That's another option. Option B is you buy the phone, and then you have your license cost for it. And either you keep your license costs as OpEx and you keep your phones as CapEx. If you have enough money in it, you can take your phone and then you can take multiple years of your licensing costs and you try to make that all CapEx. So I'm still getting finalized pricing on that. I don't have all the bids yet. They're getting really close right now. So I should have some final numbers on that, and then we can see what we can do based upon the amount of money that we actually have.
I'll talk to you. And I'm still not clear on that 185,000, but I'll take it.
Okay. But we used to have to pay $4,620. It used to be much higher. It's a $20,000 bill. Peggy only put $4,623 in for it this year. Normally it was a $20,000 bill that got hit with a phone, and we're taking that completely out in 2024 for phone maintenance. We don't need phone maintenance on an on-premise phone system. We're now dealing with equipment maintenance budget.
And you're hoping the fiber optic will be all ready when you implement it.
Correct. And we can't implement it until the fiber optic is there. And then we also have video surveillance support for $18,000 this year. So for all the video cameras that we actually have, that's now in the equipment maintenance budget that wasn't in there last year. So that is a change that we had over from previous. Under software maintenance, this one gets a little on the confusing side. It looks like it's a big jump, but the jump right now is really all due to Office 365. The Office 365 one-time costs of $129,000, that was put into capital. We just saw that. What's in operational is now the annual Microsoft 365 licenses, which we estimate to be $21,422. And then we also need to buy 2FA tokens for the police department. One of the things we're looking at doing is when we go to Office 365, we're going to put in two-factor authentication as part of it. Because the police department doesn't have phones that they can carry around on them because they're union employees. We have to provide them some form of a token on that. We have $7,000 for providing 2FA tokens. Sundry contractors, I put in originally $77,280 for our Rapid7. Rapid7 is our SCIM and Security Operations Center software that is mandated by the FBI and CJIS. Because this is really heavy on regulation, it was instead taken out of the IT budget and put over to the police department. So $77,000 moved over to the police department's budget. Then we have $19,500 coming up. One of the projects we're going to be doing soon is putting in the new firewalls for our new fiber optic ring. We're going to be flipping out all of the firewalls. When you flip out all your firewalls, doing due diligence, you have to do a penetration test. You have to have a third-party person verify that the firewalls are secured and configured the way you think they are set up and for it. So it's not requested or required by the FBI. I'm waiting for it to. The regulations haven't kept up on this, but this is just good practice. When you change out your firewalls, and our security practice is normally to do this once every 2 years, is you do a full penetration test, internal and external, on it, just to know where your security vulnerabilities are, so we fix it before the hackers find it. This is the main goal on that. Office supplies remains the same. Operating supplies remains the same. Equipment maintenance stays the same. Data communications. Here I put in $14,491. The big jump that I had was putting in the new Spectrum Monthly fiber, which I know is $8,480 for the new fiber lines for City Hall on that. And then we did have a question, is the water utility going to pick up some of that money? They used to do it on our old coax agreement on it. I don't know if that's why the money increased down on it, because the water utility used to pick up part of the cost for it, but the water utility is going to be picking up its Spectrum costs for it. But we are locked in a 3-year contract on that. So our Spectrum Fiber, which we're going to be using for our SD-WAN on it, I do know that's $8,480. Telephone, this gets confusing because we haven't signed anything yet. That I put it originally in $51,346 just as a placeholder. That's if we took the whole thing of the lease plus the phones and just put it entirely into OpEx. That's what I put in there. We could easily have a lot less than that. It depends on what's the final price going to be and how do we buy the phones versus lease the phones. If we lease the phones, it's going to be significantly lower than what I turned around and planned on that. So that one is a stay tuned until we actually turn around and sign the contracts. Conferences remain the same. And then I do not have any idea what account 5841 is, computer equipment. I want to say that used to be the account Peggy had $25,000 in for stuff for the website. But this is what,
there's nothing in there for.
yeah, and I saw it on the sheet and it's like, I don't know what that is, so make it go bye-bye if you want the money.
Okay, any other questions?
No. No. None for me. Anyone else?
None for me either.
Well done, Jim.
All right, I put him to sleep.
We got much. Well, we got some surprises coming up, but not tonight. Good stuff.
It's 7 o'clock. Do we wanna keep going on this thing, or?
Well, I guess given the aggressiveness of this agenda, it's a monster.
Yeah, it is.
It is a monster. Do you want to?
Only a few more that should only take a couple of minutes.
Well, I don't. If I touch on the mayor's one, I can knock that out.
Okay.
Alderman's one, I can boom boom. I can knock those two out.
All right. Okay, Alderman, 22.
Kelly, you want to start with that?
Do I want to? Did he or did he not just say that he
All right.
was going to do it? But okay.
Okay, so no, that's fine. Under Alderman 102, page 122. Those paying attention. All right. Adopt ordinances, resolution, levy taxes, appropriate monies for the operation of the city. Adopt and review policies to meet the city and the city's citizens' needs. That hasn't changed. Everything's not changed. What has changed is when I'm looking at the amount of work I know I did for 6 years as an alderman, and if you're going to do this, this job to what the expectations are and what the demands are, you have to be at least not losing money when it gets time to driving your car around, because when this was done, these numbers are from December of 1998, when a gallon of gas cost 1/3 it costs right now. And I'm not yelling, I'm speaking passionately, so if I offend anybody, cover your ears, because this was something that I was just confused about as an alder, wondering where these numbers come from. So I believe it's a fair way to look at what in 1998 people didn't have cell phones. 1998 they were coming here because I would see them inside the alderman's room working on the computer that no one ever used anymore. There's things that people have now that they didn't have back then. Not everybody had a cell phone in 1998. There's a number of things that need to change with the times. So my way of suggesting a fix for the alders was to increase, first of all, rename it to mileage and technology, and then add to the current amount $200 a month.
Still some.
I'm not going to fight that.
Well, I mean, it really
There's
is.
still
It's
some.
amazing.
It has to go through council, and there's still some other things that need to be changed before that's in effect. But
yeah,
thank you
Well,
for putting the appropriation in there.
Well, the appropriations in there, I'm
just saying it's just not guaranteed until it goes.
Are you telling me the budget process?
Yes.
That's outstanding. I didn't know that. So I'm going to, again, what I'm doing is I'm trying to explain why I came up with this. I am fully aware of how this is going to work. 100% aware.
Okay. Any questions? Move on to the next one.
Mayor?
Yep.
Yes, I'm just going back here to page 120, page 120.
Yeah.
same thing, I guess, was what I know is my involvement has been nonstop insanity, attending meetings, trainings, everything in the city, outside the county, and going off of a December of 1998 figure. So my suggestion,
Request.
I was going to semantically
Recommendation.
throw like 9 different words out there.
Please.
Whatever's the ask, is that be changed to information or technology and mileage, and that would be $300 added per month to that. So there's a request, an ask. Madam Finance Director, anything on that?
Any questions?
But I would like to hear.
Wait, what is my? Okay, for tomorrow, for the end of the week.
Okay.
But what I would like to ask, going back, what are the alders here? What are your thoughts on that? Whether it's yours, as the alders, as mayor, what I mean, do you think that you're being fairly compensated for how things are going?
What's the total impact on the budget?
Well,
An additional 14,400 for aldermen and an extra 3,600.
Small percentage.
Mm-hmm.
so it's 17 total, I think, for everybody. And
And it probably doesn't even come
Oh,
close
no.
still to.
And it's the
I think we're still
reimbursement
negative.
part, it's not
it's not our pay.
Right.
We can't do that. That's got to be done through referendum, which can't affect any of it. Well, a referendum could affect us, but we can't change our salaries.
Right.
So this is just to address the technology and mileage part of it.
But again, it probably doesn't even cover the full
No.
actual expense. of
Absolutely not.
things, but it'll lessen the deficit.
Okay,
Thank you.
no other questions?
I yield.
Ms. Kelly?
Alderman?
All right.
So,
Municipal buildings?
Yeah. So basically, it's going to be pretty much the same as it was last year. You'll hear me say this on all of the ones I'm looking at. Try to keep it flat, and maintenance did not have much of a difference from one year to the next. The only difference is that, as you'll see, the custodian piece was removed from this budget because that reflects the adoption of bringing an outside service and take care of the custodian of it. And Bob is leaving, retiring, and he's being replaced by Joe Wilson. And we will be searching for another full-time employee to take Joe's spot. And part of what may or may not necessarily impact, I guess it wouldn't impact the budget, but it impacts the balance in life and work. We have found a workaround for the buildings and securing them. Currently, Bob was coming in early to open the buildings and staying late to close them. And that's like after every meeting. And we just need to find something that's more sustainable because that's not something that we want to put on our new maintenance person. So we are I've authorized him to get some signs made, and we're going to have signs put up in each area where it'll be clear that this door will lock when the department closes, and that's at such and such time. So that way, all departments will take care of closing and locking up, and then the general here will be handled by engineering downstairs or engineering planning and or economic development, and then up here by clerk or myself. So just obviously he's a salaried employee, so have much of an impact. But again, I think that that's a solution that really kind of goes a long way. That's kind of where we're at on that. What else am I looking at? 36.
Any questions? What's the capital item?
I actually think that can be removed, because it moved over to, well, the municipal buildings department is going to handle the, capital portion of the finance.
Okay. Administration and resources,
So,
36.
yeah. Basically, it's pretty much the same as last year and years prior.
Okay. Assessor.
I'm sorry? Oh,
I like it.
assessor.
John, I like it. I
like
love
it.
it. Let's rock.
So the assessor, you know, we left it in there about our contract with the assessor's office, but we're gonna end up doing an RFP, and that's kind of just an unknown.
I think it's a good idea. As I talk to people around the city, happy.
You got that right.
Yeah. So we just budgeted the same amount. And
Yep. And then we'll have to figure it out, you know, if it's.
The other issue that I see is that they do primarily computer studies, determine their assessment, never go look at the property.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's come out too in some of the board of review meetings.
Yeah.
Some of the complaints that we've received.
Okay. Insurance.
All right.
I'm
sorry?
No, it's not the same insurance.
Oh.
Okay.
I digress.
Insurance is like our property
Yeah.
insurance, auto insurance.
Yep,
That must
workers'
be
comp.
It is up.
Yes. So we are going from 0.81 in 2023 to 0.69 in 2024. There is an increase. Don't we have to? I'm fairly certain we're going to be meeting. It's projected, and it's not. Someone is. You're looking at with Scott and these emails and
yeah.
line. Yeah.
Yeah, so the rate hasn't been completely set in stone yet, but they did provide us a roughly 15% increase. So that is put in the budget, and then it's allocated throughout the departments.
So the overall change.
The only one that went down is workman's. Did go down.
At least we got something down, right?
Right.
That's good.
All right.
Okay, unclassified, whatever the unclassified was.
Classified yet. There was just your
Well, that's emergency.
your refund and property taxes. Right now, we have a lot of property tax refunds. However, my office is cleaning up some of how it's input in BSNA, but I don't predict it'll be extremely high, but it will be over the budgeted amount.
What are those refunds?
Right now, we're at about 140,000, but again, that's not allocated properly in BSNA, so I have
What
to.
are they for?
Oh, for property taxes.
Yeah, for what?
For
Why?
overestimating
Oh, yeah.
on giving the wrong bills, basically.
I would assume. Yeah.
Changing
Some
the
of that
the
court
amounts.
cases.
No,
Um,
it's just
Yeah.
people's.
right.
Complaining about their assessment.
Either that or their assessments were just lower, so they took more out in their escrow, or it has to do with the assessment.
All right. Let's see, unclassified.
That's it, and then finance.
And last but not least, finance audit.
So there wasn't a whole lot of change, other than
40.
So there was an increase in payroll fees. That's inflation. That's comes from ADP. Equipment maintenance, I don't know if you noticed, but there was some equipment maintenance that either was at the department request or a little bit over in some of the departments, because as Jim said, we were moving away from James Imaging and going to a different leasing company, and so those charges have increased a little bit. That was it. Let's see.
You do the talking.
Treasurers.
Yeah,
So
the
that
treasurer's
falls under-
office does.
Yeah, they process the payments.
Yep,
And the tiny.
Right.
and the
That's-
tiny horses, yes.
What's
I
the
don't want
bank fees?
Huh?
What's the bank?
Those are the fees that we have from US Bank and our investment for all of our accounts that we have.
They manage the
So
cash.
they, yeah. Any other questions?
Okie dokie.
And last is just auditing, and auditing is requested to be up, and that's just because we are having the auditors handle more of our auditing services this year, because I am not as well versed as Paul was. So the first couple of years, the auditing firm is going to handle more of like we have a single audit, the Form C, the PSC report that's in the water, but they'll be handling that. And that'll be coming up, I believe our contract is up with them at the end of 24. So see about going with them for the additional 2 years that they've offered, or on to
Getting along well with the auditor.
yes.
She's playing nicely.
They've been
More
extremely
concerned
helpful.
about the other way around.
Yeah, no, they've been extremely helpful. They've
All right, now, I have a question on how we are accumulating any changes based
I've
on
been
these
keeping
discussions?
track,
You've
yeah.
been keeping track?
Yep.
All right.
And we'll
because,
do that all on
Yeah, Paul used to do that. Have negotiations. Administration.
I don't know about late night, but
Maybe like all night or into the morning.
Right. Okay, what's this overview of the 2024 budget?
I think we can cross that off because we did that already.
Okay. All right, anybody got anything else they want to add?
No, sir.
Under pain of death.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, this is how you do it. You get them really tired, exhausted,
Okay.
they don't want to be here anymore.
I guess we'll entertain a motion to adjourn then at this point.
So move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Well done.
Thank you, guys.
Well done.